We're getting there. You ready? Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of York County Board of Commissioners for September 2nd to order, please. Ask everybody to rise. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll wait just a second or so. Are you okay?
My radio guy.
Come on, Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everybody to, once again, the York County Board of Commissioners meeting for September 2nd, 2022. Somewhat of a special meeting we are having today to go through our budget workshop and one other item on the agenda. Roll call, please.
Gross.
Present.
Holgren.
Present.
Osberger.
Present.
Sykes.
Present.
Overmar.
Present. Open meetings law is posted on the south side of our chambers, is on the wall outside of our chambers. It is also posted on our website. Proof of publication was on our website and also in the News Times, August 30th. Next, we need to review and approve the minutes of our August 23rd Board of Commissioner meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the minutes of the York County Board of Commissioners proceedings from August 23rd, 2022.
Thank you, Kurt.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Holgren.
Yes.
Osberger.
Yes.
Sykes.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Overmar.
Abstain. We need to adopt today's agenda, if we could, please.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Thank you, Daniel. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Osberger.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Holgren.
Yes.
Sykes.
Yes.
Overmar.
Yes. Okay. One personal note before we get going. I was absent at our last meeting. I think Daniel did a good job. I did watch through our owl. I think we see the future with Daniel there. All the rest of us that are sitting on this board have had an opportunity to sit in this seat, and I'm sure that someday in the future Daniel will be able to sit there too. Also, since our last meeting, I wouldn't be a good grandpa or father if I didn't brag a little bit in public. But not only have I had COVID a week ago, but our family grew by a daughter-in-law Saturday and a new baby girl Wednesday. So our family has changed on our side. So amongst the budget I've been doing and dealing with all that, I hope that the error that I've made somewhere in there isn't too big, but I'm sure I've screwed up on something. So Lori, let's start with yours first, and then we'll jump in. This is discuss and act on purchase of a van for public transportation. And this is the van. This is not the van that is going to be cost shared or paid for by other funds. This is just an additional. You're all right. You're an additional vehicle, or to replace a vehicle, I should say.
And a little bit of background quickly, the type of van we're asking for can no longer be purchased under the Buy America anyways through NDOT because they're not available. So we would never be able to, well, not never, but we would not be able to get this through NDOT in the near future anyways. And it is a smaller van. No, it's not a lower floor van with a wheelchair access. It's a pure passenger. And we can no longer get those unless we get a huge conversion van, which I don't think would work well for us. So,
Okay.
so we're requesting the use of ARPA funds to get that. I gave you all a packet of support from the community about a month ago when we first started this process. And I think Four Corners outlined in their letter of support how they feel that it would fit under ARPA funds well, because we're needing more medical related transportation, especially for long COVID. So that's why they felt it would fit well under ARPA funding. So anyways.
Okay. Lori, I believe, turned in a couple bids this morning. through the Purchasing Act, that the state statute we have to follow. Anything under 10,000 we can buy, anything between 10 and 50,000, we need to do a bidding process. And they asked for 3, if can be
I've
attained.
actually asked for 4, I asked for one through Woodhouse, which they weren't producing them anymore, but they had one on stock at the time that would have fit our needs. And then I also asked for one from Anderson Ford, or Anderson Jeep, in Grand Island, and they did not respond to my request.
Okay. Little side note is that here a couple months ago, we had agreed to purchase a van for the Veteran Service Office. It sounds like those Ford vans are no longer in production, and we probably won't be receiving that. So we are kind of stuck with what we got. We either start looking for used, or we do have the availability of these two. Now, I believe earlier, Lori, you had said that these prices are good through today yet.
Well, they're guaranteed through August 31st, but they're going to request them. The price is guaranteed if we get it this year. The question is whether or not they are still going to continue to produce them after requests coming through August 31st. The individual I talked to said there's a good chance that they would still accept them since we're so close, and suggested that we proceed, but there's not 100% guarantee.
Okay, so we have 2, it is the same vehicle, right?
The only difference between the 2 vehicles is that one of them, the Erdkamp Motors, priced it with a splash guards, which we would be putting on anyways due to the rock roads that we go down, and their price bid, it came in lower, so.
Okay. Erdkamp Motors has got a cash price for a 2022 Pacifica Touring for $40,800, and Herpelsheimer's Motors has got a 2022 Pacifica Touring L for $41,252. So roughly $452 difference there. Any questions from the board this morning? Go ahead, Daniel.
Is this an addition, or are we letting one go back, or are we have one to sell, or what?
It would have been replacing the Caravan, which would be due for replacement, but the Caravan will fall back into backup position,
Okay,
so we will be retaining the Caravan.
okay,
So
And-
technically it's a new one.
sure, yep,
But we're also, with what we have, it's mostly due to the times that it's in the mechanic shop that we're needing it, but
yep,
we need a vehicle that will just work for us.
right. And then, the one that we got from the city, has that been completed? Is it in our possession?
It is in our fleet, yes, and NDOT has record of it, so we can submit reimbursement requests for gas and
Okay.
the items fixed on it.
Mhm.
And it's working currently,
Mhm.
but we are still working on getting the steps up into it,
Mm.
the side, whatever those are
Yep,
called.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lori, on these vehicles, they would be something we'd purchased to be built. It's not like they're on the lot. So do they have any idea of time frame of delivery?
He did not,
Okay, either place did not have any idea. Okay,
before 2023,
they didn't say. You could, once the order is placed, if the order is placed, then they could probably give you a little bit better
probably
time
at that
frame.
time, yes,
Okay,
if it's accepted. With this, I would mention that, I don't know if I mentioned before, our Uplander, which has been our backup, has completely died. It's, currently, it's under disposition through NDOT to be removed from they're just looking at our options. It's,
Okay.
so we can't use it anymore. The 2 lower floored minivans quite often are going into the shop A lot of them have to do with transmission issues, which if we have to replace those would be very expensive.
And as Lori did say before, they are requesting this to come out of the ARPA funds. After the guidelines for ARPA was changed the last time, it definitely would fit under that umbrella as an expense. So
Have both payments now come in?
yes.
Okay. So we have 2.6 and then there-ish?
2.6, and there was obviously interest earned over the last year ourselves, and then when the second payment came in, it was, even though it came in a year later, it was already ours, and so we have interest on the first 1.3 also, so it's like 28 or 30,000 of interest on both 1.3, so we got an additional $60,000 in interest over the last year. So I mean, if you look at it, you know, the interest would more than pay for this vehicle.
Are we still in queue for another vehicle through,
We are, and in fact, it's near.
okay,
Yeah.
very good.
And at that point in
Yeah.
time, then we should be,
Then
Setting
we'll
pretty good.
only be one vehicle down, we'll have a vehicle, but we'll only have one vehicle that still needs to be replaced that's exceeded its usefulness, and that is another lower Ford minivan, but that'll be another 2 years probably before we get that.
okay. Any other questions this morning? What's your wishes?
Do you have a recommendation, Lori?
I would recommend that we go with the Erd Camp. Not only is it lower, but it also has the mud flaps, which we would be putting on anyways. I know it's a little bit further away, but it's just a different direction and a little bit farther.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the recommendation of Ms. Byers and purchase the 2022 Pacifica Touring from Erd Camp Motors for a cash price of $40,800 and for those funds to come from the ARPA fund.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Bill. Any other discussion regarding this? Hearing none, roll call please.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Sykes.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
And Omenauer.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Lori. If you would, let us know, you know, like say, once you,
Once it's gone through and been accepted, I'll let you know.
yeah, let us
Thank
know.
you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, and the only other item on the agenda today is the budget workshop. To start with, I'd like to say that, you know, obviously this process started as we usually do, somewhere around the 1st of June. And we get together, we do not and have not over the last few years given any recommendations on percentages of going up. You know, we just ask the department heads and elected officials to do the best they can with the expenditures for the county and turn those back in, and they did. And obviously because of the inflation and because of the crazy gas prices at the time it was done, obviously they came in much higher than what we could even stand lid-wise. The budget committee did meet on a few different occasions. We met with Jill, that is joining us again today, to try to figure out some ways that we can remedy this process. The only thing we can do with that lid that restricts us to $300 and some thousand is cut or come up with some more capital improvements that will give us some exemptions, or, you know, we can buy it down with the robust inheritance that we have. But, you know, if we do any one of those processes, I mean, it's kind of tough, so it's a kind of a myriad, in my mind, it's a myriad of 3 of them. Obviously, if we just pay things off with the inheritance tax, that will only last for so long, and then we're going to get in a bind a year or 2 or 3 down the road when we no longer have any inheritance tax to do that. So we had to find some cuts. I think we did find some lid exemptions that we can use by moving some money around. And obviously, at the end, when we figure out what we need, we can also supplement with a little bit of our inheritance tax, which over the last year has grown again, and I believe we sit just a little over $7 million. So that's where we're at today. I would assume that we want to just start from the top again, like we normally do, and 601, the county board's budget, and we kind of fly through them. I don't know if anybody else has got any recommendations, or if they've went through and made a list of different things that they've seen or want to address. It appears like we have most of our elected officials and department heads here to answer questions. If not, I'm sure that we can be in contact with them if need be. So, that being said, Jill, are you kind of fired up?
Yep.
Okay.
Just gotta be able to see the tiny print.
Yeah.
Alright.
Everybody got what they need up and running. And once again, just start at the 601 and we will work down from there and see what we can come up with, see what we can do. So, county boards, you know, our elected officials, our wages are what they are. And so that one obviously has the increase because of that. As we'll see, most all increases are for personnel services, for the most part. And, you know, everything else, we pretty much kept the same on that one. Any questions there?
I'm good on that one.
If I don't hear anything, I guess I'm just gonna keep blowing.
Yep.
If that's, all right, guys.
None of us are too shy.
I didn't. Okay. Next up is 602, county clerk. And, you know, as we look at, unfortunately, the county clerk's gonna be the first one we look at, but as we look at some of these, and we look at the increase of asking, you know, it's not up to us on any elected official's budget to pick, and I can't find this wordage in state statute, to pick line item by line item. The main one is the bottom line item that we're concerned with. And, you know, I mean, there is state statute 23908 says county board shall consider the budget document as submitted by the budget making authority of the county, and in its discretion revise, alter, increase, or decrease the items contained in the budget, but not without first having the hearing, which we're, you know, obviously having today. And we cannot obviously budget a elected official out of business as it states. So, you know, when we look at this one and each individual one is subsequently going further, we're gonna see some increases, and increases are obviously due to raises and other reasons therefore too. And in this case here, I assume that and there was a remittance turned in as an explanation of why to add staff. Once again, I don't feel like it's up to us as the board to say yes or no on staff. It's up to us to say yes or no on the bottom line of the budget. So there we are on that one, 602. You know, as we go through, are we going to, I mean, I'll give my recommendations. This is not from essentially the budget committee. This is me that's been working the numbers. But personally, I feel when I look at a 3-year average of expenditures of 602, it's 181,000, and that's actual expenses. And then when we look at the 293 that's being requested, obviously that's a pretty good size increase. I know there's gonna be increases, so, but I would say, personally, about somewhere we gotta find 50,000 to come out of there. And that's part of my cut lid inheritance
Right.
part.
And so Kelly, for clarification, you have an employee that's wages paid out of election commission and one that's paid out of ROD, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, these are just,
but this doesn't reflect all of your staff?
No.
Okay,
no,
just the,
just payroll, accounts payable, and mine.
3
Okay.
people.
And I was asking for a new, an added employee for like the HR, and then not only the HR, but then to help out the office.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address Kelly. At one time, hadn't you stated that maybe half-time would be enough to, at least for the HR?
Well, the reason I went to full-time is just with all, just like everybody else, all of the added, jobs that the clerk's getting, is just to have one that's full-time to help out with when people are on vacation and the added jobs.
So you're looking at that increase, about 50,000
Yeah, I have to figure out,
on dash 305.
yes.
There again, I agree.
Well, I don't know if it'd be 50,000.
What's that?
I don't think it would be 50,000, it's less than that.
Oh, it shows that, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
guess
the
so.
increase in that line.
In that
It-
line, yes, I guess.
Right,
Okay,
But
yeah.
that's with the raise for,
right.
okay.
that employee that's there now.
Yeah, that the subsequent addition to employee would affect not only, that line item, but it would affect the 802, the health and accident, retirement, and FICA, those would all be affected by it.
I agree with you that we can't control the line items, but we can control the bottom line. And I'm thinking at this time, if we could, the position that we're in, if we could not really hire additional employees this year would be a plus for the taxpayers.
It would definitely help, yes.
But I guess I see the HR person as an addition to the county of making sure all of the tasks that the HR person would do for every office in the county would be a plus. I've had different department heads ask, if they would have someone like an HR could sit in with them when they do evaluations and stuff to make sure all that information is done correctly. So
And I think as we
Yeah.
look at it too, that, we have talked about a couple different, and unfortunately, the size of our county we're just right there. But I also think unfortunately that the amount of wage that was put in there for a HR person wouldn't be enough for a bona fide. It would be more just additional staff. It wouldn't be somebody that's been through, it sure wouldn't be anybody that's got any experience in it, because their pay raise is gonna far exceed $50,000. It's gonna be very expensive to have those on staff, but we're just right there. And, unfortunately, I don't even wanna say you can't still get an additional employee. I guess what I'm saying is with the increase over expenditures over the last year, if you can do that with 50,000 less, then you can still do it, because you can still hire into your office. That's just my recommendation, that we have to find those someplace. And
Right,
it's just not you, you're the first one. This is gonna be a repeated story, I guess we could have started down at the bottom and worked way back up to make you feel better, but it's gonna repeat itself.
I guess for me, it might be helpful, do we have a number that we need to trim, a dollar number?
1.7 was the initial input of expenditures that were requested. We were 1.7 over our
Our lid.
not 1.7 additional, it was
Right.
2 million, a little over $2 million over what we requested last year.
And not being a member of the budget committee and you guys having had those conversations with, department heads and elected officials, is the majority of that personnel?
Not all.
Not
no.
all, a lot of it is fuel.
I mean, fuel was huge.
Okay.
You know.
And since then, you know, obviously, as we've seen again today, I think it came down, it's moderated, and we've found, some big numbers in that area too. But yeah, it's personnel.
Okay.
I mean, and it's gonna be expenditures.
Sure, I mean, that's just inherent
Yep.
with the government, political subdivisions, it's mainly people, so.
Yep.
And, you know, we had talked about an HR position, but didn't we talk about it being its own department and not within somebody else's office?
Right, like take payroll and HR and put it in their own.
Right, right, just so there'd be more discretion or
Right.
privacy for the employees when they go to, if they needed to meet with HR on something,
Right.
so.
And I did get a quote from Zell, and
Mhm.
it's $212 an hour for us to call. So I don't know if that's, if they prorate, if we talk to them for 15 minutes or an hour, if it's the same amount. And, I don't know if they would ever, it'd all be phone. I don't know if they would come out.
Boots on the ground,
Yeah.
no, probably not. I mean, from the meetings we've been at that they've been there, it's been more conversation, training, backup.
Right.
That's what it has been. And of course, we did talk about this a couple of years ago. You know, back before the city had did theirs, you know, we talked about, do we do a combined? I mean, the way it turned out, I have visited with the city since then, and it probably would have been, we would have had to add more staff anyway, because the size of both of us would have been overwhelming for that individual. They were fortunate and they found one to come in and take over, and that, for the city, that one person does do payroll and HR, and they're about 75 full-time equivalent employees and 25 full-time part-time employees. So they're not quite the same as us, but they're not that far off of us either. And they do have one, well, in the summertime, they actually go up to like 200 and some employees, for the summertime, so they do have that. And, you know, it's something that we need to look at, obviously, and we need to rectify, you know,
Right.
what's going on.
Right. Yeah, I think the whole, what we talked about here, HR is definitely something we need. It's not that, you know, if we end up taking 50,000 out of this budget here, it's not that we are just saying, no, we're fine, let's leave HR the way it is. I think everybody agrees that we need to continue to think about how we do HR best, but, I think that we're, at least from my perspective, we have to find 1.7, and so we're cutting some from all budgets, and so I think that the 50 from here, I would be on board with.
And so when we do cut from the bottom line, then it's just up to who then to make those adjustments in the line items, Jill?
Yeah, up to the,
Up to
Elected
the
official.
official to go back and find
Yeah.
those cuts, or, okay.
yep. And that would be something that needs to be done quickly, just in terms of turning everything around for the next step in the process. So,
Sure.
just so that everyone's aware of that.
Just the CD, it's a battery, or not battery, it's solar. I'm surprised I remembered that today.
Yeah.
Would there be anything wrong with going to half-time for the next fiscal year and then going to full-time and ease into this thing as far as HR? Or if we're looking at going a complete different entity?
I don't know that you're gonna find, I mean, to me, we need to clarify, are we truly talking about HR? Because we're truly talking about HR, I don't think we're gonna find a part-time HR person. I think we're gonna have to find a HR person, and that's gonna be different than just a part-time employee. Like I say, they're gonna be in the $60,000-$70,000 annual range, you know, somewhat similar to what we're paying our elected officials already.
And I think whether it's HR, any other position in the county, if you're talking part-time, you're gonna have someone for a few weeks and they're gonna leave. I don't think anyone's looking for part-time work. Sometimes they're not looking for any work, but, so yeah, on our side, it would be nice, but I think the reality is, I don't think it's gonna happen anywhere, so.
I don't think I've seen anything else in that one, Daniel. Did you have
Correct.
anything else in
No.
602?
Right.
You know, in all fairness, I'm gonna go on to 603.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like I say, just kind of get through some of these. Once again, you know, we see the administrative, personnel services, obviously grow, substantially. 3-year average on that fund, the expenses, now these are actual, these aren't budgeted, these are actual expenses. It's 278, 920 over 3 years is what that had averaged over 3 years. And as you see, the 397, 650 was the requested. You know, obviously there's some postal services and stuff like that we know are gonna be more expensive, but it really comes down to that personnel services up top again. And, you know, once again, my recommendation is gonna be the same thing, that same 50,000, you know, off the bottom line. That still gives good growth in that office. I mean, it's not like it's taking all the growth away from any of these offices. It just isn't allowing so much growth there. And, you know, in this particular office, you know, I do feel a little bit for this office because they are working 4 instead of 5. But unfortunately, the circumstance that we are in, there is somebody being paid out of this office that hasn't been able to be in the office since May. And until that changes, I mean, it kind of is the way it is. So that would be, once again, a recommendation that I have on that one.
I agree.
And I believe that, you know, Megan is back there. Megan has jumped in and done the best she could with the help she's got. They just got done with second half collections. She appears to not have too many gray hairs pop up yet, although it changed colors maybe just a little bit. And, you know, and she's got a fairly newborn, you know, this year too, so, you know, it's been, you know, somewhat stressful, but I think you did get through second round collections pretty good. So, and we do appreciate that. Any other questions there?
So we're doing 50 from there too?
That's gonna be a recommendation, you
Okay.
know, I mean, and, like I say, the department heads are here. And, I mean, if they wanna speak, they sure are more than welcome to speak too. 604, Register of Deeds. You know, I don't know that, once again, this has the one employee, that it takes care of. And then the rest are expenses that, you know, I assume that, you know, the postal, once again, different things going up. I don't think there was too much drastic in this one that I come up with. There, Daniel, did you have something?
Yeah, we did talk, I think as a committee, and maybe I have old outdated numbers. The office supplies, 0101, we had talked about maybe taking some of that and moving it over to the Rod Reserve. Kelly, had we,
What's the Rod Reserve?
The modernization,
Oh,
So that-
1150.
That extra fees?
the preservation fund?
yeah, there you go, the
Oh,
preservation.
okay.
Um,
That's money that it's taking, every time we do dock stamps, we get a portion of that.
Yep.
So that money is just that money.
right, and did we find out that we could use that to buy,
The books.
books and stuff like that?
Yeah.
and so can we, we had increased that, and, I mean, it's $2,000, so it really don't matter, in the big scheme of things, but I don't know, if we had, it seems like I remember
Yeah.
talking about that a little
We
bit.
did talk about that. I
And-
Yeah,
forgot
we can
about
lower that to 8,000, that's fine.
Is that,
Yeah.
would that be too stressful on that budget, you think?
Did you get that, Jill?
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
I assume you'll haul her out if you
Yep.
have anything.
So what are we cutting from ROD?
Just 2,000, taking that, it went up from 8 to 10, and so we took it back down to 8 on office supplies, 0101.
No, you didn't, you did it on the bottom line, you can't do that.
Oh, that's right.
Are we good there then? Is that what we had, Daniel?
Yep.
Okay, 805, or 805, 605, sorry. And once again, you know, my recommendation on this one's gonna be the same amount. This office obviously is gonna go through some change this next year, and, I know that there's gonna be some fees in there. You know, personnel is probably where I would assume that 50 I'm recommend would attack. Postal services and the printing and publishing, and I know this LB 644 is totally new to us, but we get to share that cost, right? So does this take in consideration revenue that will be coming in do you know that, I mean,
Well,
obviously it's gonna go up because we have to pay for it.
I mean, yeah, this is, but, you know, because we have to pay up front.
Yep.
Right,
Revenue coming in, I don't know how that necessarily works. I do know that the subdivisions that are having to comply with the provisions of LB 644 will have to reimburse the county for the postcard expenses. That formula, I'm not,
But that just goes into the, back to the general.
but that would just go back to the
your
general, and I
right.
think there was a discussion then that perhaps we not take the postcards out of this budget, we take that out of miscellaneous general
Yes.
postcards and postage, right?
Yes, the
Okay.
state has provided recommendation in terms of the line items to use. And the expense line item is a general miscellaneous line item. And Kurt, you had sent estimate of what you had built into the office budget
Right.
for those items. So it doesn't make an overall reduction, but it will shift it out of 605 into the 970.
Right, it doesn't take 10,000 out of that.
No.
Printing and publishing, because there are still other, you know, annual statements that have to go out and
okay.
other things that assessor's office has to do, so.
Right.
But, and I did work with Ann on this.
So the fee structure that we see in front of us then, you know, won't lower this any because of LB 644?
It will. In-
This
in
will.
what you're, yes.
In the
um,
printing and publishing, it'll take it
Correct.
down, and you have those numbers?
Yes.
If you would
Okay.
like, I can just tell you right now, because I have an explanation up here. We figured the cards.
7,500, Kurt,
Okay,
and the 4,900.
yep, 7,500 for printing the cards and 4,900 for postage,
Okay,
so.
so that 12,000 will actually drop off of this one? And do we need to add it in on the miscellaneous side of things then? But it's
Yes.
gonna be offset with the revenue.
Correct.
Well, or at least
Some of
partial,
it.
partial
Right.
revenue, who's, I believe, if I remember right, you know, if there's 4 entities, we split the cost 25, 25, 25, you know, 25% apiece.
Yeah, it's
so.
based on the parcels.
Okay,
Well,
So,
the number of parcels, because you could have like High Plains that has very few parcels in this county,
Gotcha.
they're not gonna pay a quarter
a
of the
quarter of
cost.
everything, they're gonna
Right.
pay for theirs.
It'd sure be nice if they wanted
Right,
to.
yeah,
but
exactly.
I don't think they would want to do that, and they shouldn't, so.
Okay. So that's the only other thing I had seen, but you'd already identified those as expenditures that will be coming off there, so.
Otherwise, that's a pretty handsome budget, really.
Mhm.
Still quite a ways over.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing too, and visiting with Ann was, we weren't sure staff-wise what we were going to need. And so I think that clerical regular time, that's probably where that's gonna get trimmed back quite a bit. And we're gonna do some changes in the office there as far as using technologies and stuff that might enable us to do things with one less person.
More
So,
efficient.
be a little more efficient that way. Not making comments on how the things used to be done, but, you know, it's, just
Mhm.
put that out there, so.
Suppose 30 would work off of that yet, Kurt? Off of that. Clerical, regular time.
Yeah, let me. because,
The Fed and the postage and the printing would just about bring us where we want to be.
But your printing and postage is
It's-
not
yeah.
going away.
Right, so
I know.
It's
those,
just shifting
It's just
funds, so
shifting,
it's not
okay.
an overall.
We're-
so we.
we're
still-
shifting $12,400 out of publishing and
Correct.
postage out of that budget.
Well, we probably can't
Right, so it's-
trim 50 out of yours anyway, leave it alone, the postage and the printing, because you still would, you are short of one employee right now, correct?
Oh, it's staff, there's 3 in the office with the deputy soon to be, with Tammy, she'll be taking over. So they're gonna be running 3 here until the end of the year. So they've kind of been running 3 anyways here this
Right.
half of the fiscal year, and then, we'll be 3 to 4 starting next calendar year, the last half of the fiscal year, so.
And remember a little bit too, Bill, on the deputy salary, for instance, we've got, we have $51,000 in
Right.
there, and there's been 2 months, or I'm talking in months, I know there's pay periods, but there's been nothing
Right.
come out of that yet.
Yeah, the
So that's
actual
gonna be
week.
over, so in my mind, there would be room,
Right,
And
for that.
keep in mind also then, we will have to fill that vacancy here through the end of the year, so that deputy wage will stay, well, there'll be less coming out of deputy, but more coming out of the, official salary, so,
Which is there.
which is there, I mean,
Right.
it's all, yeah, so,
Yeah.
let me, yeah. Well,
Yes.
if we need to do a little more, let's come back to that one.
Any other
So are you
questions?
gonna say 50 for right now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Perfect.
mhm.
Okay. I think I bypassed one, but I think that's the county, the superintendent. Yep, that one's just the spelling bee, the 606, which is stayed the same. 607, selection commission. Once again, that has, one full-time employee, and then obviously, part-times,
Those are my poll workers
yep,
for the elections.
yep. And,
And I got a guesstimate, I know there's no election next year, but if we do have a special election, I gotta have to kind of budget for that. It's an unknown.
but we still
Sure.
have one this year yet,
Yeah, we
that will
still
come
have
out of
one,
this
yeah.
budget.
Yep.
So,
Um, mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, in the last election, was it fairly elevated from previous
No,
elections?
it was way less because
Way
it
less,
was in
okay.
COVID. When
Right.
COVID was here, we mailed out a lot of
Right,
ballots, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
And so do we anticipate, do you figure there will be,
I think there will be
More
more
than-
because
yeah.
of the snowbirds.
right, okay,
Yep.
and that, so you're looking at the 10,000, obviously, that's your call, but it appears in the past, it's plenty, and not knowing, and then, of course, we look at that last year, the higher number was the COVID year, right?
But if we have a special election,
Right,
it could be an all mail.
right,
So,
sure,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
So these are just,
it's guesstimation
Yeah.
Mhm.
at best, I understand that. And that's why I guess I don't have any on this one.
good call.
That doesn't mean the other four
I
don't. Anything from anybody? Okay,
Any more on that one, I guess?
hearing nothing, and then
Well, I mean, keep in mind too, inflation's not affected just wages, it's affected everything.
everything.
Right, yep, exactly.
608, planning and zoning. It's stayed the same. I guess we recommend it stayed the same. It's a very small one. Not much comes out of there. Data processing, that one, we would recommend that we, that's obviously a fund that we've wanted, people to turn in and, give us an idea where we're at on computers and stuff like that. We know we have a need throughout the county on computers. So we have, obviously have budgeted it pretty high. As you see over the last few years, we haven't used near as much of it. Now, whether we're getting caught up or not, I'm not sure. I don't think you ever get caught up on computers. But because of this year, I would recommend that line item, which is line item 0502, the data processing equipment that we had put in at 60, that drop, in half, down to 30. And because we did have some requests, but once again, we didn't have a bunch of requests. So that should easily take care of the requests we had, with a few more incidentals obviously in there. So,
Is it 30?
yeah, that's what I'd recommend.
I think that's a good number.
Any questions? Okay, 621, clerk of the district court. I mean, this, we didn't see a huge increase in there. Obviously, personnel services was it. The others are guesstimations at best. We understand that. As far as, court-appointed counsels and that. So I guess in this one's case, I did not have anything, recommendation, other than what was brought forward. Anything?
Yeah,
Anybody?
that council one, that's just a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have for, budgeted for council?
70, I think it was 70.
Yeah, 70.
70.
Spent 62
Okay.
last year,
Yeah.
so it's hard to justify going down on that.
Right. I'm good.
$622 county court, I believe that one stayed, right at the same. It was a little bit over last year, or, underspent what was budgeted, but it's right in to where it's pretty close. I don't know that, once again, of the 208,000, the court-appointed council is 160 budgeted, and as you see, we spent 159,699 last year, so we're right there.
Mhm.
We hope that the relief valve is being hit on that,
Right.
and there's not as much use there. But that's what she had turned in.
Looks good.
Okay, on to Public Defender's Office, 625. Personnel, up top, once again, this is an area where we have not had a deputy on staff. We have the 699 in there as a budgeted expense for the year. We do not have a deputy on staff, do we there, Dave?
Correct.
So, there would be 2 months' wages that aren't being expended out of that. That one there, I assume the others, are the raises. Health and accident. Now, David, you do have data processing cost in there. Is there something else within the office that you see? That, that's just a couple $1,000s from last year, but there was no expenses out of it last year. Is that for like computers, or you have any?
That's for updating our case management and scheduling software.
Okay, software expenses. Okay.
And I would be willing to take off the additional, I believe I put in $2,500 for research assistance. We can forego that this year.
Does that have a number? Is that in, what number is that in, David?
Where is that?
Is that your Westlaw line item?
I think it's consulting fee.
Okay.
Something good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did you find that line? Rick?
Yes, it is 2501.
Yep.
So So are you, I'm sorry, so you're recommending that that goes down to what it was last year? You spent 2,500 out of it last year.
I'm recommending that it be reduced by 2,500.
Okay, so,
And I would also add that if I end up hiring someone who is a relatively new attorney, I believe I have the authority to pay them less than the authorized amount, and that might be an additional savings. I think we could start somebody just out of law school out at a salary less than the 65,000, approximately 65,000 a year.
now, when we set the salaries for the deputy as we did, you know, a couple meetings ago, do we not, is that not what we
We need to check that.
have, we'll probably have to check that to make sure, because the authority lies, the only person in your office is the deputies that we set the salaries, and I assume the authority relies amongst us. But, you know, and this would be July 1 to June 30th, so, you know,
Right, I think we probably have a little bit of room there, knowing that we don't have a,
that we don't have so many
One right
pay
now.
periods out of it, you know, so.
and, I wonder, is it something that they could be hired, not necessarily as a deputy, but as a,
It's just an attorney?
right, yeah. Then he could set the salary at whatever,
I would guess.
I've
Whatever.
considered that as an
Right.
interim measure.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't appear that it's necessary right now, but
sure, sure,
I'm still considering that.
yeah, very good.
Really like the probation, what's the probationary period, like
90 days.
90
or
days, you
something,
know,
yeah.
so, yeah.
So,
But-
yeah, I would, go ahead.
Well, as I say, whatever we set the wage at in,
Mhm.
I would almost kind of feel like we probably need a budget for that, don't you? Or,
Yes.
so things match up.
Right.
Yes. Okay,
Just to clarify, so I have the info on the consulting fees. Are we doing anything with the data processing costs? Are we leaving it as is?
the data processing cost was for software. You believe that's gonna be about $3,000 for the software?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And we need that, yeah, we need to keep that.
So once again, this is, you know, elected officials, budget. Most everything's in the personnel costs. I guess we raised those, you know, we raised the elected official, we raised the deputy's wages, or the deputy's wages stayed the same, but the others are gonna go up. Other than those two things that I talked about, I didn't identify any other cuts.
Right, in the, right, I suppose, the clerk regular time, I don't know if, how much of a raise increase did we, or we didn't set that, I
We
guess.
don't set that, no, we just,
Yeah,
and there's 2 full-time clerks in your office, right, David?
One is 4 days a week, and the other one is full-time.
Okay. So on this one here, I mean, we can
Yeah.
do obviously whatever, it's just
Right.
gonna be bottom line type stuff.
Right,
is all
exactly.
that we can
I
do.
would probably recommend that we have some sort of cut here. You know, if it's, we've got a little bit, if we, you know, if we did a total of, 20, including that 2,500 that we brought down.
And I had, you know, figured up on this one, the last 3 years average on this one was 211,611. And, so, you know, that would make sense, you know, that's what was expended over the last 3 years.
Did I hear you say you're looking for an overall?
Overall cut of
20,000?
20, is that,
Is that corresponds to the percentage of 1.7 that we represented in the overall county budget?
that was just a number that looking at at what was spent and the overall, the average, that's where I had come up with that number.
I was gonna say, I'm willing to, do my share by doing a proportionate reduction, in the same percentage as we represent in the overall budget.
Mm-hmm.
I will find, what we need to do that.
Everybody good with that then? My right side's pretty quiet over here today.
Normal.
Just, actually, that's not the truth. Okay,
Randy, where are we landing on that?
20. Child's,
Including the
Yes.
2,500, okay.
that was recommended, yes.
Okay.
631, Child Support District Court. Right in there. Guess I didn't see anything, you know, the budgeted last year 58, 42 spent, budgeted this year 49, so it's actually a little bit smaller budget than we seen last year, so, I have nothing on 631. 640 is self-explanatory. 641, building and grounds. We did identify on building and grounds, obviously, well, first off, the wage, you know, and this one along with all the other ones, Jill, we gotta get the wage right.
Yep.
You know, with the raises that we gave at the meeting, 2 meetings ago, we'll have to get the wages calculated right. But line item, 1,300, building ground repair, we was gonna lower that one, down to 50, so a reduction of 20 on that. And then line item, 50503, that's the heating fuels. You see that last year we'd spent 38, but 19 of that was that fee we incurred for using fuel when we weren't supposed to. So, we would be recommending to drop that from 46.5 down to 25,000. And then, of course, once again, just make sure that the wages, you know, fit what we agreed to at the last meeting. And we'll have to get that information for you, Jill, and that. Any other questions on,
So what's that total that you want to go down?
well, right now, it would be 40,
40?
and then the wages is gonna go down also.
So at least 40.
Yeah. Yeah, the wages won't be a big fee, but it'll probably be $2,000-3,000, somewhere on that, as we will identify with the other ones also. Agri Extension Agent, theirs came in just a little bit up. I think that was actually one of the lowest ones. I know I've seen her be there. She is sitting back behind there. Lowest increased expenditure, as far as percentage-wise of all the budgets that was turned in, so I really didn't see anything there. You know, the fees, the raises, are normal as we've seen in everything else. Personnel expenses are the most, obviously, 74,000 of the 200,000 on that one there, so.
You look at what they budgeted last year and their actual, they were pretty darn close.
Yeah, it was pretty close last year, wasn't it?
Lots of conversations with Randy.
Yeah, there was a couple. There was a couple, but I think it turned out pretty well. And staff has changed out there, and, but I think everything's going
Yep, you're
well.
full. And everyone is still, yeah,
And anticipating some
no turnover this year.
perfect, love to hear it. And on that one also, you know, what was brought to our attention on, was the compensatory time that we'll have to address
Yes.
here yet this year,
Mhm.
to see where we go with that, so. Any questions? She is here.
I'm good.
Okay, 6:51.
I'm on vacation, so.
Oh, have a great
Yeah,
vacation.
thank
Thank you for coming in. Okay. The sheriff. You know, obviously, once again, personnel is a huge part of this budget. The one thing that I did identify, and I did talk to Sheriff about, was the vehicle. And then there was more conversation taking place about the vehicle, and then I'll draw your attention to the 1850 line, which is K-9 cost. That money is money that came in, after we lost the K-9, and so that 27,408 needs to be spent on that specific item. So, as we talked with Jill a little bit about, and that we feel like that could be utilized in outfitting the car with what it needs to be a K-9 unit. So this may be a deal here where we actually leave the vehicle in there, but not at the rate that it's in there now. I think
Right.
it's in there at $60,000.
Correct.
And this might be one of those supplement with inheritance. We don't take it out of the budget, because if we take it out of the budget, then, you know, the replacement, you know, we need it in there. But this might be one where if at the end we do a transfer, we accommodate the vehicle price of this. And then that also, that 27, I mean, because bless everybody's heart that donated money to the cause, but now we have to track every penny of it, that it gets spent in the right way. And quite frankly, if we could do that in a year's time, rather than dragging it out over 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, it would be so much easier. And when we start outfitting cars, how much money do we spend when we're outfitting, you know, a vehicle to do this?
So it's approximately, that $65,000 number would outfit one or just under one, because sometimes we pull equipment.
But of the 27,408,
So the 27,408, we would use all of it, so we would allocate that, because that would include putting in a cage, putting in slides for the rear, because they have to have special containers in the back for locking things in the back.
Okay.
And then it's a lot of specialized equipment for the dogs themselves, heat equipment and things along those lines. So we would allocate all of it
okay.
towards the vehicle.
I think we had discussed this as a committee, and I think it's a great place to target that funds to make a cruiser that's comfortable for the K-9, and I think it's a good use for it. So I think I would be on board with that. If we were to do that, what would you say that would be a reasonable number to put in that cars and trucks line, knowing that we'd use that 27?
I think that we had talked about, I mean, that fund, if we took the 27,000 plus the, and took that down, because right now it's budgeted at 65. I think if you took it down to 25,000, it'd be perfectly fine. I think you could cut 40 off of that, and then we would be okay. We could outfit it between there and other places, between the K-9 and the other places we could get it done.
So that 40 that would come off, so we keep track of that number, that wouldn't need to be replenished with inheritance funds to make this work. We would just have to, if we wanted to do it, we'd have to replenish the 25, if we wanted
Correct.
to do that.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Just for clarification. Other than that, you know, obviously, the big deal is we found ourselves behind on wages. Where at one time we kind of was towards the front, we were no longer in the front, and this would accommodate getting us back up almost just to par, would you say, Paul, on wages on this? And so, once again, Paul sets those wages, but this would be getting the guys up to where,
Is this
what we see.
adding another employee then, Paul?
No.
No.
So what are we recommending on this one then?
really just the changes we talked about there of dropping 40, on that. I mean, fuel-wise, this to me, that's one area that, you know, I always looked at through all of them, and the fuel was, I think, was right in there. I mean, it didn't really show a huge, increase. And once again, we can't really attack line items, but that's, I mean, let's face it, we look at them. So that would be the one area right there. Any other questions? Hearing none, then we're off to 6:52, County Attorney. And I'm sure this was a fun experience for Gary his first time around. I assume you had some help. He's kind of grinning back there.
Had a lot of help.
Yeah. You know, once again, we see some increases. You know, I'm sure there's some areas in there that we can find a little bit extra. I mean, I know that in my time here, the autopsy one is, I mean, it's just one of those hit or miss, but it seems like it's really, you know, taken off and went. I'm hoping that
I think right now I'm under budgeted, to be quite honest with you.
it's under control. But this is one that as I look at the 3-year average on this one, it's just under 400,000. It's 391,560, and as you see, it comes in at 536,617. So this is one that I had targeted, you know, as an effort to find more cuts at that same 50K on this one also. Trying to find it in there somewhere. I think it's probably in there. So
If I may,
go ahead.
looking at the last 3 years, that would include 2020, which was obviously a huge reduction in travel here on Interstate 80. That is the pipeline of my office, that the increased travel that has occurred in the last 2 years I'm feeling the brunt of it more than any office in this entire county. There haven't been more roads added, but the travel on the interstate has mushroomed, and I think what's happened in the last few days with the rest portrays that. And so I would just mention that in the standpoint from a 3-year average. I think, I don't know how really accurate that would be as far as what we're looking at today. I can't remember the exact number of cases that were in 2019, but I know we have doubled that in the last 3 years. We're at pace for 257 felonies for annualized for 2022. I think we're at 240 for 2021. And so I think the majority of my budget increase was for, I think I was at a 22.3% rise. The increase for the employees was purely the inflation rate on the day that I set the budget, which was 8%. And so it's majority of that was to add an additional attorney. And from that standpoint, the county attorney's office really does set the harmony for how things move through the justice system. If we are not moving cases really efficiently, then there is a lot more housing in the jail. There are a lot more attorneys that have to be court appointed because the public defender's office is going to have more cases to deal with. And so I do think with having my staff equipped with personnel the way I envision it, I think we could actually totally, I think on the big picture wise, that we could actually be saving the county money by adding an additional attorney. And from that standpoint, that was we're into September, and that addition was for the entire year. And so that's obviously not going to happen. If I was to add, I would be looking at January. And so I just, and so, but and so perhaps even from that standpoint, from actually adding an attorney in January, I might be able to cope with exactly what you're stating today. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously challenging for everybody, and and not to say that, I think we're on the right track upstairs.
I agree.
I think we're heading down the right road, thankfully. It just, you know, like I say, it's went up, and the only reason I go with 3-year is because that's what's in front of me. I would've used a 5-year average if there was 2 more years in there, but there's, you know, that's what's in front of me, so I use that as an average.
I'm mindful of that.
Go ahead.
Did you have a comment?
Nope,
Okay, all right.
nope.
She's being quiet.
Aye.
So after all of that, you wanna take 80 or 90 out there?
And once again, these are, you know, recommendations that
Right.
I have brought forward. You know, obviously, this is our budget, this is not
Right.
my budget, you know.
Well-
I think that it's undoubtedly, between me and Daniel, we've seen the numbers probably as much as anybody, and that doesn't mean that we, you know, have any more to say about it, it's just what it is.
Right.
No, yeah, I remember I was on the budget committee, you just become a lot more familiar with everything that goes into each budget too when you're putting it together, so it's certainly an advantage to have.
For the purpose of continuing and kind of seeing where we fall when we get through all this and cutting, if you feel that on the surface, thinking maybe even, you know, even if you're wait until January to add, if you're, would 50, are you okay? Like for now, if we go ahead and put 50 down to see where we fall,
I think I can make that work.
okay, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So I think that I'm on board with that number for now to kind of see where we can be.
$658 vehicle inspection, obviously not much. $660 drug testing, we left it, you know, at 5,500, the same. County attorney child support, you know, this is another one that Gary obviously gets to take care of. This one's seen a very minimal, obviously, increase. And this one currently has 1 staff member in it.
Correct.
I'm right. And that deputy salary that left in there, then that deputy salary is what will be used to help offset another attorney. Or this would be another employee.
No, this would, I would try to work everything together.
Okay.
Is what I'm gonna try to do.
Okay. That being said, I left this one alone, you know, so to speak, as is. Any questions? County jail. We come back. Okay. There is a change on this one. Unfortunately, there's not a change to the negative side, it's to the positive side. And you had those figures, Jill.
I'm pulling that back up again.
And this is what was originally proposed in raises, and then what was taken on by I believe the state, and not only what we've seen with Lancaster County. And we are seeing some, I call it cannibalism. You know, there's people coming after our people because they're paying so much more than what we are paying. So that was re-looked at, and there was a change to 0315, which is the top line item. Jill, whenever you get that up, you can.
Yep, you would want the number,
Please.
727,920.
727,920.
And then 75,000 on the 10500, the holiday overtime pay. So that was a $3,000 increase there. And then obviously the retirement, the FICA go up as well. So
Right.
the new Retirement line item is 55,728, FICA 61,641. So the total personnel group is now at $1.044,489.
So we increased it how much then?
Hang on. That does not look right.
Yeah, cause it was like $50,000 or $60,000.
$56,189.
You know, we hope that over the next year, we see the board of prisoners line item to go down. And I think we've seen a little bit of it so far. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, Randy, I'd like to compliment the county attorney's office. It helped us out on that quite a bit. So I'm hoping that we can decrease that in the future, some of those costs.
So this is one of those that once again, I mean, it is personnel up top, and I wish I wouldn't have had to say I'm adding to this one when I'm wanting to take ones away, but this, I mean, just the facts of the matter is, we can't lose more. I think we've already lost one employee back there already. I mean, it's just tough, you know, so this is figuring in raises to get them up to where others are already, and then they're gonna go through their budget process, and who knows where they're gonna be at then. Go ahead.
What line item are the, do we account for the contracts that we have with boarding prisoners in other counties? Is that the board of prisoners line, or is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not see that went up over the years
Yes,
substantially.
yes.
And we've tried to shop around with different counties to get lower rates, but that doesn't always work, so.
Right.
We've attempted that. I know we tried to get Sheriff Vance was trying to work with us to have Seward County take all our inmates for $45 an hour, and I'm sorry, a day. And the county board over there didn't approve that, so the Sheriff Vance was willing to, go with that for us, so, yeah.
You know, we struggle with it. I mean, that's a big figure, but then for us to build a whole new jail,
Right.
that figure could be a lot bigger. So, I mean, it's hopefully we can compromise and find that we can get involved in these interlocal agreements, which I believe is being taken care of now. And also on those interlocal agreements, as you guys talked about at your last meeting I wasn't at, they help on our lit exemption side too, if we have an interlocal agreement with these
Right.
entities. So that would help us too to get those in place. Any other questions for the?
No cuts were identified in jail then?
No.
Okay.
County surveyor. Left it the same. Noxious weed district, 733. The only thing, I identified here is the fact that we gotta get the wage right with the raises that this board did a couple meetings ago. And the only other one that there was a change submitted after this was submitted, and that's 0302. The change was asked from 7 to 12. And that is for a secondary pickup to have, and actually, we're actually recommending that not be in there anyway. So whether it's 7 or 12, we're recommending that it just gets dropped altogether. Other than that, the rest of the budget stays the same.
You recommend dropping the 7 out of there?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, like I say, it was actually, what you're seeing is the 7, it was actually turned into 12. But we're recommending to drop it out of there anyway. And then once again, getting the wage correct up top. Any questions? Eight oh three, Veteran Service Office, I think the only thing I identified here is just getting the wage correct, compared to last year, and the raises that were issued. Everything else is the same. And that information, Jill, we can get once we're done and.
Yep.
Okay, handy bus. 8:35. We have to make sure the wages are right. Have identified a little bit of, because we went from an 80-20 to a 50-50, and then we have to get that wage right, because I think it's more 23, not 25,440, is where we're at on that. And then, did we have, Daniel, what else did we have on that?
Well, we were gonna look at the retirement and the FICA.
Right, because
Those
they went up
numbers
so
were-
much.
Right.
They are over calculated, so
Mhm.
there will be a
So
reduction there.
that we'll get that figured out.
Yep.
Okay. And the other one that went up there obviously was the health and accident, and Lori, I believe you, because of other office staff was changing, is why that was up.
Well, because it'd go from 20% to 50% for me, so part of that health is that percentage of my health insurance. And then, basic,
Okay.
yeah.
So the other thing that we have to do is check in, we were advised years ago by Pam Horn that we could not, for instance, pay our zoning administrator out of two different funds and this and that. Well, we've been doing that here for not only Lori's, but Carla's, and those are the only two.
Right.
So I believe you sent
I
email yesterday, and we're gonna have to touch base with Pam to make sure we're doing this right. If not, we may have to do some shifting and figure out where 100% or whatever we do. So that was caught by Daniel yesterday as we visited just a little bit, that, hey, why can we do it one and not
Right.
the other?
I
don't have an answer for that.
Right. I would be,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would think that we would not be the only entity that would want to pay out of other funds to one person. So I would be surprised if it's not, that there's not some way that we can do that, but it'll be interesting to see
To see what
what
Pam
Pam comes
says.
back with.
Yep.
I know it's happening in other counties, like Seward County, it's the Veteran Services also does the transit as well.
Okay, yep.
And with the proposal, with the budget here, Carlos would no longer be split, it would just be my position.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like something that'd be good remedy maybe next budget year instead of trying to squeeze. it in
Right,
there.
yeah, I don't know that we make any changes right now, but, I
Unless
mean,
we
if they
legally
come back
have
and,
to.
right, yeah.
Ask that question after the budget's approved.
I think the
I'm
only other
hoping-
one that we identified was, once again, the machinery and fuel.
And yeah, I would say we exceeded our budget last year, but I bumped it up again based on thoughts of fuel.
Yes,
costs
at the
being
time.
higher, so I could say they could probably come down 5,000.
I think we had actually,
We'd ask, we'd recommend that it come down by 10.
Yeah, come down to 35. Because, and I think
Last-
we've seen it down, because we had part of the expense last year, and so.
We do, I mean, one thing to think about, we're 2 months in, and so some of that higher prices we did incur, but I think, I mean, last year's budget being actual spent 32, I think the 35, I mean, based on the trend, I mean, it could turn around and go to
Right,
5.5, who knows, but,
But then there is also the vehicle repairs as part of that, and although we're getting 2 new vehicles, we still have 2 old vehicles that are gonna be, continue to incur costs.
Sure.
The Uplander, we no longer have to incur costs
Okay,
on,
right.
so that should help some.
And the nice part, as we talked a little bit yesterday, Lori, the nice part about this budget is still engulfed in the 100, which gives us the availability to transfer. We can be just a little bit tighter on this one because we have that transfer of budget authority on this one versus the aging services that we need to be more spot on, so.
And I know it doesn't help out on budget-wise, but the nice thing about this budget is most of it's reimbursed through state and federal funds, which is,
Sure, yeah,
it doesn't help the budgeting though.
sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Jill, do you have any numbers, how much that would change on the retirement?
I
And
think
the
when we
FICA?
calculated it yesterday,
Would
it's,
that cut
like
that?
they're roughly, it would take roughly about 10,000 out.
Okay,
Um,
that's quite a difference there now.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So how much are we talking total cuts from the handy bus then? Don't look
So all I had was the wage, which is, you know, about $2,500, and then, you know, like we talked on the fuel and equipment of 10. Machinery and equipment fuel is what it's listed under.
And then it will drop the retirement FICA.
Right.
Yeah, the
So-
FICA, if I recalc just on the wages that are there, the FICA would be 12,000 roughly. So that's 10,000 right there. The
Mhm.
retirement is similar. So,
We could knock about 20 off of the total.
Right,
approximately, yeah, approximately.
right.
And, yeah, probably a little bit more than that if we take another 10, or if we go to 5, then be more like
Well,
25.
you went 10 already.
Right,
And another 10 or 12 off of the retirement fund.
right, so if the FICA goes to 12, that's
Okay.
10 there, and then the retirement is gonna be similar. So if that's
30.
another 10, so it'd be 30,
30, okay.
right.
And then the fuel, that you're already accounting for that?
No, that would be the
That's there.
30.
That'd be up to 30, okay.
And Lori, in the handy bus driver line, that one went up 20,000, or not quite 20,000. Is that based on just the wages that we approved, not
Yes.
adding additional
Correct.
drivers or anything? Okay.
Okay, we good? I hear papers
Good on
flipping.
that one. Mhm.
970 miscellaneous. So Jill, on the miscellaneous that we're gonna add in there, we're gonna do that on the 9,900. The postcard, the postage,
It has its own line item.
okay, it has its own,
Yep,
okay,
it has its own line item.
okay. all
It's
right,
just under this department.
Okay, all right,
But that's not, but we don't see that on our document
No,
yet.
because it's a new
New
line
line item,
item.
okay.
Yep,
And so we'll put the 12.4 in there then.
yep.
you know, and of course, this is the catch-all. And
It's an unknown.
it is. It is. You know, we, obviously, when we get down to transfers, those are gonna change, but, the other, compared to last year budgeted was 442, is 410, you know, so we lowered it, obviously lowered it some. And actual expense was 394, 623, so there we are. Question?
Do you have any recommendations for this one besides the 644 postcards?
No,
Okay.
no. Other than the cuts we already took. Which takes us to 980. Now, 980 is county building and operating, you know, expenses. That one, yeah, is where we took some budget authority from last year. So it, it looks like it did the increase, but it didn't. I mean, it was the same, it started off the same at the start of the year as it is right now. This is another one that's kind of a backup, gives us a little bit of a backup. We do have room, in my opinion, to find some cuts here. I mean, I don't know that we know any expenses or anything that's in this one, but go ahead, Bill.
I'm just saying, we've talked about this for a number of years. We're gonna have to start replacing some of the carpet in this
Yes.
building. And that won't be a big amount, but we're gonna have to get started with that, whether we do, second floor.
I agree.
But, I think that needs to be started this next year, if possible. And it's covered there, and I think we could still take some out.
I think we'd easily take 20,000 out of there and be okay. I do. And still get going on some other things.
Mhm.
Where do you want that to come from?
Uh,
The other capital outlay?
Yeah.
Or the repair?
yeah, no other capital
Okay.
outlay. 2,500,
And so take it down to 30,000.
yeah, it'd be perfect.
Okay.
You're taking how much altogether?
20,
20, okay.
and that's what I had. Okay, that's 100. We lost part of our crowd. On to 300. Do we need a break or something, or should we, what's that?
I said, what's the matter with them? This is
Yeah.
riveting.
Yeah, it is riveting.
Hey, now that they're gone.
Let's
go back.
Okay.
I'm good to keep going.
All right, 300. Obviously, on this one here, we, once again, broken record, personnel's. We did, line item 0307, we did purchase the motor grader out of inheritance. So, that is a $350,000 that we should be able to eliminate. 0209 is the fuel, and obviously when we did the fuel, things were going nuts. And that would be another one that we looked at, and we felt like if we could take that down from 900 to 600, there would be a $300,000 savings in there. This would be cars and trucks is another one that we had on our radar. That would be one that if we needed something, rather than taking it out of here, but we could do some transfer from inheritance to replace that if that's what we needed. I know that Harvey said that he could probably go without, but that might be something there because we are going after this one. We also have to get the wages right, obviously up top, that we set. And then this is the one also where the capital improvement comes into play. The piece of the puzzle that I looked at, and Harvey found a couple capital improvement projects that could be done. They would have to be shovel ready, and they are shovel ready. We could take about $650,000 and be able to use that as a lid exemption because of them being capital improvement, but they have to come out of this fund compared to coming out of a non-restricted fund like inheritance and or ARPA money. So, my recommendation would be that we do those projects out of this fund, and then we look at, for the 1 year, purchasing the needs of our county for the aggregate, the same equivalent number out of ARPA, because it's a non-restricted fund. And it gives us that piece of that pie of capital improvement. That's just, something, I'm pitching. Like I say, I think that when I started off, it can't be just one thing. It's got to be a combination of some, and that's the one thing I came up with. Doesn't mean it's the right thing, but that's what I came up with. And Harvey and I talked, and he feels, and the secret is they have to be done by June 30th. They have to be done, and he
those two can be done.
Boom. So, it's just a matter of coding and getting our coding right, you know, and making sure we code things right, you know, throughout this year. And, yes, it would look like ARPA's buying aggregate, but it's really taking care of those capital improvement projects that we can use for a lit exemption.
Mhm.
And that's about $650,000. And that's how I came up with this number of 1.7, and I think we've got really close to that now,
Mhm.
so.
And-
More-
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
What I was asking is, so when you were talking about cars and trucks,
Yes.
eliminate that 60,000 out of there?
I wouldn't eliminate it. I would say that if we need it, we utilize the revenue in from inheritance to
Okay.
replenish
Do
it.
we-
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
I mean, we could, if we
Right.
choose to eliminate it, obviously we could do eliminate, and I'm not sure what vehicle we're talking about, if we need it, but if we need a vehicle, obviously that's that piece that we can use to replenish it.
Yeah, could we just eliminate it here and then just code it to inheritance, or do we need to
Right.
show what's coming out, or, I mean, and that's.
The thought there is that, you know, if it's actually something that we do want to budget for, that we would supplement, and do an inheritance transfer,
Okay.
in order to show the budget what the roads department is actually doing. But what was your thought, on what we would be replacing or what we would? be doing?
Basically, the last pickup that we bought for the road department was the sign truck, and that was, of course, last year. We have not bought a pickup update any of the fleet since 2015. So when you start looking at it that way, and we haven't spent any money on the pickup fleet, it's kinda, maybe we should start looking at doing something, and that's why I put it in there.
Okay.
Is it absolutely necessary we do it this year? No, we can get along without it. We have been.
Right.
So,
Yep. The position we're in, I think if we can, I mean, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's only 60,000, but, I mean, my recommendation would be to wait a year, on that.
Yeah, and obviously we can pull it out, and if push come to shove,
Right.
we still have our backup.
Correct,
I mean, if we had
exactly.
something go down on us,
Yep.
if something happened, you know, or even, you know, an accident happens or something
Right.
like that, we can always
Yep.
use the other.
Yep.
Like Daniel had said, though, the idea, I mean, I think our intentions are well placed, but for instance, when the motor grader, when we buy it out of inheritance, we don't give the true reflection of the budget
Right.
because we've taken that piece out of there. We should probably more so use the transfers to make it look more accurate. You know, because then next year he comes in and he puts a motor grader in, and first thing you see is, wow, it went up. Well,
Right.
if you don't remember what we did, you know, there we are.
So, you know, a few years back, I remember we was transferring every other meeting. We don't wanna see that.
No,
Right,
No.
yeah. Harvey, we had talked a little bit about the fuel. You kind of help talk us through that. I mean, right now, we're proposing about 300, cutting 300, taking it down to 600, which would be about 80,000 more than what we actually spent last year. Thoughts on that, kind of what your,
the whole deal is diesel fuel, we've been, the last 3 years, we've been 180,000 gallons of diesel fuel. So whatever number you wanna put on there, that's what it took to run the graders and the trucks. Gasoline was another, the average was somewhere around 40,000, but then that is also being reimbursed by the sheriff and so on.
Sure.
Rolls back around on that also.
but
So when you look at that, that is what we have purchased for the last 3 years. That is the average of where we're at.
180,000 a year of
For
diesel.
fuel, and another 40,000 gallon for gasoline. The gasoline went from 36 to 42, as I recall, so I just went to 40,000 for the environment to work with.
Now, Harv, I'm sorry for my ignorance, but at a point in time, there used to be a difference between road and non-road use diesel fuel. Is that not a thing?
That's still there. But what we do is we are running off-road fuel through our trucks. And then every quarter, we pay the taxes that would be on for the trucks.
Okay.
Instead of having two tanks,
Mm.
one for
Right.
graders, one for trucks, and you know what was gonna happen.
Right,
So it was way easier to just do this and do it that way,
Pay
and that's
tax.
what we do.
okay. So what, right now, what are we buying that diesel fuel for, off-road diesel fuel, what is it, do you have any idea what it is a gallon?
The last one was 367 is the last tanker that we got in.
Has it showed a downward trend also?
Starting to.
Okay,
Starting to. What we do is every time we go down to where we can take our fuel in, we call around to all the distributors and then they bid for what they can bring it to us for.
get the best price, gotcha.
So what are you proposing cutting out of here, all told?
Well, we already did, like say, the motor grader 350.
Right, that's not been included in this budget though, correct? Or it was?
It was.
It was,
in there,
sure.
so it took
So
the
it-
350 out.
You would
Yes.
have to take that out,
Have to
yep,
take that out.
Yep.
And then 3 for fuel.
Yes,
yep. And 60 for the.
and 60 for the pickup.
Okay.
60 for the pickup, and
Yep.
another 300 for fuel.
Mhm.
Daniel, were you doing some ads in there?
I was, so if you figure, what did I use? I used $4, so let me readjust that. So, 60.
Those two numbers I came up with 710.
Right. Yeah, so that, using, the 370 and for diesel and 350 for gasoline, roughly around 800. So we could, fuel, we might be cutting too much, but at the same time, I mean, maybe it's something that if we get into that point, then we use, inheritance or ARPA to finish the year out on our fuel. I don't know if that's legal or not.
Well, with the 300 fund, it needs to be funded,
Okay.
you know, versus, opening up the
I get
budget
it.
again.
I hear you.
Now we're outside of the realm of transferring budget authority. We
Yep.
have to make this thing work.
Okay, yep. Yep.
So if we see some needs, then we have to, I
Right.
mean, in this case, if fuel went over by 150, then it's gonna have to be found somewhere inside that budget.
Right, exactly. I get you. Yep.
Yep. So, and, I think that, but like he said, if you're using gasoline, a lot of that is being replenished by
Sure, right.
the sheriff's department, which is gone, and handy bus
Lord,
and stuff. I mean, I don't know where that breaks down at. Is it most,
Well, I can't tell you the numbers,
I
but
can.
weed department, the sheriff's office, Busy Wheels, those are the 3 that use fuel out of us, is basically what it amounts to.
right? And that,
So last year actual, which obviously would have included part of the higher prices, the reimbursements were just over 81,000, as compared to 49,000 in 2021.
Okay.
So that line item had a substantial increase. What we have in the budget, the revenue budget for that right now is the same 40,000 that we have
So
been using. So yes, there could be some, we could increase
increase the
that.
revenue side a little
But
bit.
you're still talking, you could maybe increase it 40,000.
Right.
So, and that's, you know, again, how do you time that increase in there?
Right.
So,
Right, in our gas is, as we've seen, I assume transport-wise, we're buying it cheaper than what we're buying it at the pump.
Yes.
You know, and I think at the pump, I seen last night is 326 at the pump now, so, so it's come down. So maybe what we should do is look at more in 200,000, not 300,000.
Yeah, I was wondering, yeah, that was what was, just as we were doing numbers here, that's kind of what popped into my mind. Maybe it was better, instead of going to 600, doing 700,000 in fuel. Thoughts?
I just wish my crystal ball was there.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would very much like to do the 300, but running the numbers here, we could, I mean, maybe we're cutting too much there, I don't know.
Well, another thing, I'm not trying to say one department's more important than the other one, but we've seen what happens when we start skimping on the roads. And it's gonna, if we start doing that, it's gonna
Sure.
bite us in the back end a lot bigger down the road
Right.
than if we just try to maintain what we're doing right
Right.
now, so.
Yeah, we don't wanna park the motor graders in February.
Or the gravel trucks.
Or the gravel
rock
trucks, yep. Yep.
You already have the grader out of there.
Right,
Yeah.
350.
yep,
So if you do that, 200 off the fuel
yep,
and 60 off the pickup,
yep,
you're at 610,000.
right.
and, you know, we spent 521 last year on fuel, so, you know, I'm assuming that 7 should be a safe number.
Right.
Because like you say, it is in a downward trend now, and we hope that that continues.
So what are we proposed cutting?
610.
610, okay. And then that does not include,
610, yeah.
and that does not include then the
We
two
get-
projects that we could,
Correct. That
Right.
would be an addition.
not finagle, but on paper make look like they're
Right,
doing something different.
right.
so if we do that, where do you want to, the 650, we're gonna shift those projects? Do we put that in just the miscellaneous contracts farm? Because we want those to
No, I
flow through your
understand.
capital
I
outlay,
understand what you're saying. I
and then we
just
want to
think about-
reduce,
Yes, we can go through
Just
miscellaneous
use that?
if you want
Okay.
to put it in that way.
okay, and then,
Which line item are you going in there?
the 51250 miscellaneous contract, so it would go up 650 from
Gotcha.
175.
Okay,
And then, where do you want to pull out of, do you want to
Pull out
pull
of what?
part of, do you want to pull it all out of like gravel, do you want to, because we're gonna have to pull, if we're gonna add to the capital outlay line item, then we've got to reduce
for the rock or
Right.
for the aggregate. And then that would come out of the ARPA.
I would say go out of the gravel.
just take it all out of there as
Because
compared to
we-
splitting it or anything like that. We've got 675,000 in the gravel and 500,000 in the rock,
What did we spend on rock last year?
332.
Okay, take 325,000 out of the rock and 325 out of the gravel.
Okay,
Because I'm sure we can haul that much material in and cover it safely.
okay.
Okay,
Okay. Can I
Got
have
her?
a s- Well, yeah, but can I have a second to?
sure.
Because we made a lot of changes here.
Well, we knew we was on this one.
And I'm trying to make sure that, trying to get to a place where when we're all said and done, we maybe have a
Idea?
little, yes.
Ideas are good. And then, of course, we have the wages on that one also.
Yes.
While she's doing that, just a quick question. In, we, we wanna take that out of this budget, right, and put it in ARPA versus doing a transfer. And maybe we can't do a transfer out of ARPA, because it's separate. Like, inheritance, we're in the 100.
Yes.
Okay.
In this case, I would make
Move it
the
out.
purchase out of that
The-
ARPA
Yep.
fund. And unfortunately, I mean, as we talked about, not losing track of those
Sure,
things.
right.
This is an area where you're making that drastic of a change and don't think you're going to
Right.
lose the fact
Yep.
that we shifted that. Does that make
Perfect.
sense?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And this may or may not be, you know, we may do it again next year.
Right.
You know, I think the one project that I like out of ARPA yet, you know, if you wanna call it that, would be the road out to the ethanol plant. You know, we know we have a problem out there. I think it's the conversation I had Harvey, you know, we have overlays and we have asphalts. I mean, we could spend a ton of money on this, but I think that one out there is one that is, if we look to get it somewhat going and engineered and stuff like that, they may be the second piece of the project.
It would be challenging to make that happen in this budget,
Right.
but next one we could make that happen.
But we could be prepared for the next year and then, because we have, you know, 2024, make up your mind, 2026, get it spent.
Right.
And, so,
And that's,
I
that's
think-
taking that ethanol road all the way to the tracks, right?
Absolutely.
And I think, as we're talking about this, I think it's important to note the projects that we're doing with this money are projects that are on the list and need to be done.
yes.
And so, you know, we're using this ARPA money to help alleviate having to make the county, come directly out of the county taxpayers' pockets.
Right, right. And, I mean, it's helping us on two sides. You know, we're
Exactly.
getting,
I'd rather go down than in the
Right.
years to come.
Right.
and I think it's very important to point out that one of the two projects is in the very southeast corner of the county.
Well, it's about time. We've only been building roads for 150 years in this place. They're finally getting down there.
I'd like to use a little of that for 93A.
Okay.
Do you want to increase anything on the revenue side for the fuel reimbursements?
I think we
or do
probably
you want
should.
to
A little
leave
bit, I
that?
think.
Okay.
I think we should probably
You want to split the difference
I
and
think
put
so.
like 60,000?
Yeah, I don't think I'd go all the way up to 80,
Okay.
just because
It was what, 40?
40.
We budgeted 40, which has just been that
Yep.
carry forward. 2021 actual was 49, 2022 actual was 81.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, you got her? Or almost?
No, because I need to fix the transfers, but I wanted to get that right. This is where it gets it.
On all those, I'm glad I brought this for you, by the way. Well, you just got the ones certain buttons on all those wages that I'm talking about. You'll be able to get those, you know, yeah. And then we can compare to last year's and make sure we have that fee.
Mr. Chairman, I might step away for a moment
Okay.
while she's working on it.
Should we just take a 5-minute break while she's doing that?
That'd be good,
You need 5?
yeah.
All right, we got 5.
I've got a way to fix some of the roads.
We are too. Screwed up one, now it's screwing up a half mile.
How you doing? Just dropped some. Not too bad.
Sacks Lake addresses. I'm getting people that live at Sacks Lake, apparently it's only one address. Everybody that lives there.
Is that where like Heidi's live?
They're right, no, they're not at Sacks, but they're right there. So they're like four, in fact, I had a picture of it, it's like 419. And then it's like lot, I don't know, so all the packages that anybody gets there gets delivered, not at the Heine's, but there's another house at the entrance. They get delivered just to this house that this family's covering at. So they're wondering about, can we get them different addresses?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because then you even look on the assessor's website, all those houses out there, none of them have a house number.
And then, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it's just Saks Lake, it's not like individual homes. And I'll have to check with somebody, see how big all that's assessed.
Well, and I wondered about, as they brought this forward, about emergency our responders. You know, I mean, if the rescue units get dispatched to whatever that is, it's like 419 Road S or
I'm
something.
gonna find it here quick, Randy.
West Taunton is just 17.
Oh, they built
He
down there,
did.
didn't they?
So yeah, it's 419. So that is the address for Saks Lake. Yeah. Out there. So I thought the same thing, Chris.
They can't, isn't it gated, so you can't just,
No, you can, I mean,
you can't.
it gives the appearance of a gate, but yeah, I think it's always open.
That is.
I think your video's posting something.
Yes, you will.
Hey, Randy, you don't need me. I saw.
Oh.
And one missing.
What is that?
All right.
My transfers are out of balance now. This is where I get nervous.
13.
Yeah.
It's just fine.
Congratulations.
Well, it wasn't, they started screwing, you did.
You ready to go
House, Danny, and Paul. I won't.
I know you
Go look at the first one you did and see what the semis are doing to it.
You're gonna be in the ditch.
Daniel,
What do you think?
what do I think what?
I don't know.
I haven't been
Thought
down
any
and
of
looked
it.
at the next screw up you're doing. Oh,
Haven't you
got-
yet?
I haven't looked at the Rainbow House corner yet.
It's better.
Probably better, yeah, just like the
That-
other one's better?
No,
Tell me that
it's-
other one's better.
I'm not gonna tell you that one's
That's
better.
right, well, this one won't be either.
You're a mile from 34.
It's better.
Just
Put a
let me
stop
take
sign
that.
on it where I told you to in the first place, and I won't say another word. Coming from the north on, that's K, right? Coming from the north on K, you put a stop sign there, I won't say a word. Yeah. Wait a minute, is that yours, Bill?
What's that?
That corner I'm talking about?
No.
There we go.
Go find numbers on that side. Is there another?
There's another button on that
Okay.
side. Yeah, interesting.
Right, yeah.
You didn't have anything on the highway bridge fund?
No, we worked on some things on the 21 actual, so I just wanted to make sure that was not
Okay.
impacting the budget, so.
Adult diversion, 666, obviously that is nothing.
Mr. Chairman, is that another one, adult diversion, we did away with that a couple of years ago, can we just take that sheet completely out of there?
It doesn't have asterisks by it.
It's not closed.
It doesn't have, usually the ones that are out, Bill, it's got the 3 asterisks, and this does not. So we apparently have not.
And then we have to keep them in there like for so many years too.
Right.
It seemed like some of them we had in there for forever. We eliminated some, last year or 2 years ago.
We did, and you'll see those with the little,
Is there an asterisk for each year that it's been eliminated and then, or?
I don't know about that.
Excuse me for breathing.
No. Okay, juvenile diversion, 676. Now, this will have to be updated with the last grant that we got. And we have those numbers, do we not? Okay. Tristan does that last grant that we had applied for, was right about the deadline when we signed
Yep.
for it, and we ended up getting it, so that is something that will get added into this. Have we got you those?
No.
No, we have not,
Not that
okay.
I'm aware of.
Okay,
Okay.
we will get. And you have that information, do you know?
So is there a proper place that additional is going to need to go on the expense side, the offset?
That is going to take the insurance that helps covers the insurance and stuff, right?
Because, yeah, that made, when him getting that grant made him capable of being a full-time employee, you know?
Okay, so it's gonna flow through it's all gonna flow through the personnel. We'll just have
Yes.
to-
Yeah.
We'll just have to split it out. Okay.
Okay, so we'll get you that information. And 985 child support agreement.
Is that 85 or 662?
Yeah, 90,
Well,
I got
95,
corrected.
60.
Oh, I was using the wrong fund number, and then you,
I did the same dumb thing you did.
so that's why I'm adding wordage to it too. So that one, we're good.
There will be a change here. Those are the transfers we talked about that, sorry, I got flipped to revenue. Because there will be additional revenue coming in through the transfers for the incentives.
Okay.
That were miscoded into the general fund. So that needs to be transferred from.
The $12,522.
And 11, there's 2 years. So there's the 2020, 2021, and then what just came in the beginning of August of this year. 11,052 was from August of 22, and then the 12,522 was in 2020.
So you will add that. Well, those are funds that came into the general, and we'll have to transfer them out to get them into this fund, and that'll be part of our cheat sheet that we will have to transfer funds. But you're gonna add those to that 30,383 then?
Yes, and
So
then the,
he can expend it.
yeah, and then the expense will go up by that
Right.
amount too.
Okay.
Yes.
The visitor promo, the 990 and the 995, visitor improvement. The only thing that has changed in those is, here a few years ago, we switched the way we were paying because the one fund had exceeded the other fund by excess amounts, and now we switched that back, so it's paying out of the other one. And then we do have, Bob has not announced his retirement ever, or is impeding, but he's getting to the point where he's talked about it just a little bit more, and there is a buyout on that one also. But that will come from this fund that is funded by the other, but I think it was like $14,000 somewhere in there. I mean, it's pretty sizable. So when you see the salary, that's the salary, that's not the salary he's making.
Not saying it's gonna happen, but we're getting prepared for it.
Yes, that is involved in that buyout.
Good idea.
So those are those two. Oh, I think I skipped one. The sinking fund, obviously, the 1100 reappraisal sinking fund, that will continue to get his into it.
That's 25 we've been putting in there.
Yeah, that. And, I'm not sure, I mean, we used some out of it this last year, didn't we?
We
For the
did.
commercial side, Daryl was here
Did
and.
those come through yet? I know Daryl's in the county. I think she did do a reval of commercial property, because it's due. And that's something too, maybe in the future, I think that was, everything's supposed to be looked at, all property, in the 6-year window. Ann's practice is always trying to move that up to 4, because she always felt that 6 years was too much in
Right.
between, and I agree with that entirely. Commercial, for whatever reason, got pushed back to 6-ish.
Right.
So, in the future, we might look at maybe have little bigger increases, just to kind of keep commercial in that 4-year rotation with ag and residential as well.
Well,
Future reference, not
into this
budget.
one.
Right.
But we also pay for that flyover
Right.
out
that's
of this,
another-
and believe it or not, it's been a few years since we did that again.
That's
so-
gonna have to be thought about here, not this budget year, but next year, maybe or two, so.
Okay, next up is 1150, the rod preservation,
It kinda is what it is, isn't it?
employment, same as the 1200 Employment Security Act. And, there's another one that the insurance reserve has been, silent. And then we get to the area on aging, 833. And once again, this will be, we'll adjust some wages for Lori, for sure. And this is one, and apologize, Lori, these get a little bit confusing. So now, Carla is going to be 100% out of aging. And then you also have
I would reduce to 50%.
new employee is
That
gonna.
would be Carla.
Okay, so that there's no, because I know you got an employee starting next week, but that's on the,
Oh, that's the care manager position being filled. So it's not a new employee, it's just filling
Right,
a
right.
vacant position.
but that's out of this
Yes.
fund also.
Yes. And there would be a little bit of savings on the care management position because she did accept the salary that, 20 rather than 21.
Okay.
So there's a bit of savings there. Plus, we didn't get it filled right at the beginning.
Right,
The health and accident, I went back and looked at that. That is incorrect.
okay,
It was pulling from the previous year's high number, and the previous year Kelly gave me the actual, and I plugged it in, but it didn't transfer to the worksheet that I was working on in Excel.
Okay.
So that would be more like $45,000 instead of 55.
okay, so that is 802, okay?
So we get 10,000 there.
Mm-hmm.
Take 10,000 out.
Mhm.
Possible, but not for like budget, but just an FYI, our meal coordinator position is retiring the end of the year, current calendar year, and that insurance may come in lower when that position is filled. But we won't know that.
Okay. So we've got the wage then, Jill, and you've got the insurance deduction. This with the FICA and retirement are more spot on this one.
Yeah, if anything, maybe a little bit under on those. So when we adjust those wages, in any place where we adjust those wages for what was approved, go back and recalc.
Okay,
Let's go back and recalc all of it.
okay.
make sure that those are coming in okay.
Okay.
So we got a total of 10 for that fund then?
Mhm.
And, you know, as far as like with the food and health program, you know, we have been consistently in that just over 20, and you're budgeting, you know, 30 on that. Is that,
That's because Aging Partners is always asking us to increase that. We are comparatively low to the other 8 counties by quite a bit.
okay?
So they're always asking us to come up with ways to increase that.
Okay,
I don't know that we'll be able to do that, but we've been asked to try to do it again this year.
Okay.
So with those reductions, particularly, I mean, I know that there will have on the wage side, but just thinking about like the health insurance. Because this, other than the grants that are, I mean, those are there, the kind of the catch-all for the funding source is coming from inheritance. So we have 90,000 budgeted right now to make this fund balance. Are we then reducing that transfer by whatever we reduce those expenses by?
I would assume.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so.
Any other questions on 833? Or no, 833, but aging?
Mhm.
Randy,
Yes, Lori, 1300.
might check with Aging Partners, because I think part of the agreement is that we don't reduce from previous years what the county contribution has been.
And we'd be right around,
Okay.
we'd be
Okay.
at least the same. I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
All right.
Good?
Yes.
Okay. County relief, 1,500. You know, I guess we left it the same. Fortunate, we haven't seen much of an increase in there. On to 1,700 state institutions. We pretty much left the numbers the same.
Mhm.
Any questions? Veterans Aid. You know, I guess we really haven't utilized, I think the actual expense there is for the monument,
Mhm.
you know, out of there, that we really haven't utilized it.
I think we just left it, you know, we had capped that at 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
Very seldom used much out of there.
And there's plenty in there to use.
Yeah.
You did include transferring $2,000 this year to
Right.
work back toward that cap.
And I think part of the, from what I've heard is, you know, a lot of times there's other monies available. This is kind of like the last resort, federal or state or whatever monies, and they get those first, so.
I'm good with that one.
Okay, and we have Busy Wheels, 2,200, capital outlay.
Is that Lori's budget also, or how,
Yes.
where is that, okay?
835.
Mhm. Do we know, if she snuck out of here, do we know what that 10,000?
It's the plug figure
Okay,
for
alright.
to basically give
Use the-
authority to spend it all.
Okay.
So there was $14,295 at June 30, 22.
Okay.
She's budgeted $1,800 revenue, which is tended to come in actual. And so, specifically, she budgeted the 6,000 under the pickups line item, and then we
Right.
just used the rest to
Perfect.
use that.
Thank you.
The stop, 2355. $10,134. and that's one that is sheriff's, I believe.
No,
No.
county attorney.
County
County attorney, okay, thank you.
And that again is just a budget, the authority to
Right.
spend.
Okay, the drug law enforcement, 2360.
What's that for? Vehicle? Is this the sheriff's?
No. No, the
Yeah.
sheriff, this is sheriff?
Well, not this is state, where it gets split between this fund and goes to the schools. The 50/50, so like marijuana tax comes into here.
Okay,
And there are some other forfeitures. This last year, there was almost 52,000 that came into this account.
this is the
So
one
This is not the same as the federal,
forfeiture.
correct?
This is the one where I think there's a group that meets, is it not the sheriff's department, police, I mean, there's like, that decide how it's spent.
Correct.
You know, they have the authority to decide how it's spent, this is that one.
These are pretty restricted funds.
Yes.
Yes. This is the drug court fund, that we had set up. This is what gets paid in by the participants into the drug court. And that should be set up and working on its own now. Now, this is the federal forfeiture for the sheriff. 2410.
And so this is the one that you're only allowed to spend what you had on hand at the beginning of the year, so.
You can't budget by projecting what might be collected.
Correct, you can't do that.
June 30th it's pretty much set. And I
And it-
believe out of this one, he was going to try to purchase a vehicle
Great.
this year.
That's what it's for.
Right, exactly.
But with those vehicles too, when they are purchased out of here, then, you know, if we ever sell them, then that money has to go back into that fund. It's
Okay.
not like it's just the county's money, it
Right,
has to
sure.
go back into there, so.
The expense that we would notice would be on the fuel and the personnel in there, but that would be.
Right.
Um,
And, go ahead.
I was just gonna question, knowing that maybe there is a vehicle gonna be purchased out of here, does that need, I mean, right now we've got it, most of it in miscellaneous, is that the proper or correct place to put that? Or should it have is there a line item of cars and
Yeah, I
trucks
mean,
in
it would
there?
need basically a capital outlay item, which
And
can
it-
be done.
Do we feel that would be better, or are we okay just
I think
leaving it
it's
in
always better
miscellaneous?
when
Sure,
you
right.
classify it more appropriately.
Yep,
Um,
right.
So, yeah, if that's part of the intent, then I would suggest that we
Right.
just set up that
Okay.
line item. And then, again, it's a matter of also when it actually happens,
Sure.
getting it coded correctly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I think the reason that we have budgeted to miscellaneous is not knowing, budget
Yep.
the difference there, not
Right.
knowing what it
Yep.
might go toward.
Okay. There's county attorneys, 2411.
Same scenario in terms of only spending what was on hand at the beginning of the year.
11,882. And then there's our 2580 of the COVID money.
So do we need to add
We
there?
we'll have to get the fund balance on that, because I'm not sure what that is, but that other monies that came in, it came in like that 1,328,000, but yeah, we'll have to get the corrected fund if we can on that for,
Okay.
because that number is, we assumed when we put this together, me and Daniel and Kelly, that was just 1.3 added.
Right.
And it'd come in higher, so we'll have to get the corrected number.
Do you want to budget additional interest revenue, or do you want to just let that be. I mean,
Over the next year?
right, you're not gonna get it all spent.
No, we're
Yeah.
not. I don't
So
know if we need to.
Okay,
I would
okay,
say
so we'll
that
fix
would-
we'll fix the grant piece. And then just leave the interest as is.
Now, do we need to, on this expense side, do we need to add that, or do line item to?
I would just do that on, when you do the actual. I mean, we have it all going as capital.
Okay,
Outlay
Which-
anyway.
for the, so he
Right.
knows how to code the rock, the gravel
And
that
then
comes
you'll
out of
just
here.
have to- You'll want to create those line items as they come in. I mean, we could go ahead and create it now, that's not because that would just be the one. But then as you actually, if there are additional expenses coming out of there, then those need to be coded as what they really are.
Okay,
Because your budget, when you, on things like this, and the same is true with the inheritance fund, you know, we put that in miscellaneous, because you have no idea. And it's not in terms of how you spend it and being over that, it's not a line item by line item issue.
Mhm.
But then when you do the actual, in terms of really looking at how did we spend our money, then it's
Right.
important to code those as they actually are, not just here because that's where the budget got set. Does that make sense?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So we'll have to come up with some state-approved line items. Because we did the van today,
Yep.
and, different things like that.
And those
so.
we can definitely, I mean, we could go ahead and do that now, to make that a little cleaner, and then anything we decide. If there are
Okay.
other things that come up throughout the year that you decide to use against this. that
Right.
would just be- But yeah, we could do the, basically the rock, the gravel, and the van for sure.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah, because those questions we know are gonna be asked
Correct.
when they wanna know how to code it, so
Correct.
if we have that
Yeah.
answer.
Yep.
Okay. 2600, nothing. 2601, the debt service. This is the one that is going to slowly, I believe, is this the 2601?
this is
Of course,
the one that's
this is
going
the one
away.
that's slowly going away as the taxes from previous years continue to trickle in.
Correct. So what we've done on this one is, at the end, so 6/30/2022, there was $4,226 and a penny, in that fund. So we budgeted, transfer that out, and then whatever gets collected in there, as some of those old taxes trickle in, the next year budget too, and it should.
Yeah, and whatever that number is that we have, I mean, I know you'll put it on the cheat sheet, but it's whatever the number we have at that time.
Within no, this is one that we can do actual, because we're not going to budget revenue.
Okay,
And so, because we have, I mean, it should be minimal, because there's nothing new going in there, it's
Right.
back taxes being collected. You could put in an amount, but I don't know that that's how you, I mean, because it's property tax, so it's not like you can ask, so it would just be a miscellaneous. So whatever, I think your transfer on this one is the 4226.01.
okay.
I'm not putting the penny on the budget. It's gonna be 4227
I
on the
know.
budget to allow authority, but.
What we transfer
We'll put
is-
it on the cheat sheet
Right.
with the penny, yes.
Perfect,
Yes.
so I'm trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
Okay, 2605, Community Development Block Grant, this is one that obviously is really going now. At one time, we had originally put in the money to transfer out of inheritance to make this work, and now we was granted the exemption that we don't have to do that, so we'll just continue on as we've been doing on this and not do that transfer in, which we'd have to transfer back anyway.
Yeah, the one thing that will change on this is right now it's showing as a federal grant.
Right, and it's state.
And it is, yes, we were able to determine that it is state funded, so we want to classify that correctly.
Yes.
Just so it's not looking like you have more federal dollars than you
Mm, talk to me.
Okay, we're good there. 2700, inheritance tax. Expenditures out. These are always the fun ones. So we've got our CASA, Blue Valley, Hope, Blue Valley Behavioral Health, Adopt a Pet, and ambulance, City of Henderson ambulance out of this one here. This is the second year, I believe, we had kind of halfway committed to CASA because they had missed that grant. That's why theirs had went up more, and we'd said we'd offset that. They'd missed that grant, if you remember, last year, budget year. So this is the second year, and that should be the end of that. Obviously, the rest of them is what they ask. This board has always decided what they wanted to give.
Hadn't we kind of agreed at one time, like on Hope Crisis, just to raise that $500 a year?
We never did contribute or fully fund their request.
No.
Ever, and I think Randy's right, and I think we were discussed, or maybe you're right, you said every 500 every year, talked about building it up, but I think with the revenues we have in inheritance, if they requested 11,
I'm fine.
I'm fine with it too, yeah, but no, I think you're right, so we're always flush with cash there, and so, but now we are, and they do good things, so.
And they still want somebody from around here on their board.
You know, I don't think Daniel got enough committee assignments.
There we go.
Okay, next one up, 2700 inheritance. You know, the library, that was the request. That's what's been given, you know, for the last 3 years that we see.
I'm not even haggle with you people on that one this year. No sense in wasting my breath.
Next up is the York County, you know, we just finished, we did like 12,000 over 4 years.
Right.
And we finished that, and they did not request any more this year. So it was the same as last year. You know, I guess that was one committee I did pawn off on Daniel. He's been doing a good job over there. I mean, budget-wise, they must be obviously okay.
Right.
I'm sure they would take more if we
Right.
give them more undoubtedly, but I think
No,
membership is still
membership
holding
is-
well.
It is,
not?
and it's up, and so that kind of helps. Also, it was my recommendation to the board to request the same amount,
Okay.
just knowing where this board's budget was gonna be. And so they agreed that they could make that work this year.
And I think the city had increased,
Yes, correct.
you know,
They
their
did.
share too, and they had fell behind. So.
Yep.
So there's those two, Southeast Nebraska District, SEND, there's two of them, is there not? That's a combination of the two?
We just got that, I can't remember, was it 9 and 1,000? I think
Yes.
it was.
It's like the regular dues and then housing dues, I think, was on top of it. And we as a send board discussed, don't send out two different requests, just make one request if you wanna know what it's all
They give
about.
us 2 invoices, but they send it the same.
Yeah, that's just, I don't know why they do that. There's
Yeah.
tracking reasons they need to, but.
Next page is, once again, inheritance tax, public assistance cost, and miscellaneous, and these are our transfers. Like Jill noted before, the transfer towards aging is on here at 90. Is that changing just a little bit then, Jill?
It sure could if that health insurance number is changing, if
Mhm.
it
Okay.
changes in this, so. But we'll double check on that, just to make sure that it's in compliance with the agreement.
Okay.
So-
And then that grant, that 480 is changing
gonna
off
go.
there, go off there too.
Yep.
Okay,
And so then, will we move that back up to the miscellaneous?
Mhm.
Yeah.
okay, emergency manager, 2910, Slilas. This is obviously the one that we share with the city. The wage will be corrected up top
Mhm.
to show the proper wage. You know, would say with Layla it was 2,500. So that will be adjusted there and all those figures. And then everything else is, like I say, just what we split with the city. The equipment and the costs of that stuff is put in there, and then she has some money coming from the 29, I always get them goofed up, 2913, 2914, the holding fund to take care of some of those costs in there also. On our side of the, so when you look at our revenue, or our expense compared to the city's, ours is a little bit yet less because we're using money from the 911 wireless money to help offset ours a little bit.
I assume that the regular dispatcher salary and the holiday overtime, I assume she put that in based on what she requested of us.
Raises,
So I
yes.
would assume that that would be correct, those numbers would be correct.
Yes, should be.
Yeah.
Should be, and I believe, she was at full staff
Yes,
again.
right.
Good, Jill?
Yeah, so, we'll adjust, on that wage side, but that difference will just go into I think we use the communications equipment as the catch-all,
Right,
because the amount is set with the city.
Right.
And we're keeping it there with the authority
I
to
see.
spend it,
right.
so.
Okay, and then here is the 13 and 14, and those are numbers that we get from the Public Service Commission that goes in there. And we are slated to, unfortunately, the meeting we had this week, I wasn't able to attend because of what was going on. We are, last I knew, we're still slated to be off this legacy system shortly after the first of the year. And then that funding model will change a little bit, but, this is what she used to give us the funding model for this budget year. And then, of course, the 2914 is the set-aside money that we have to spend so much of it, and then everything that we don't spend is, we transfer, and transfer into this fund. And then this is what's gonna do some of the equipment and stuff that we have to purchase before we run out of time. We have the legacy, once we get switched over to the next gen 911, then we have so much time to, deplete this down to zero. But that's, when we have a budget of $1 million for a call center, it won't be hard to take care of that. Leela's got a pretty good grasp on all that.
And does that, to do those transfers, we just have to budget to transfer that money in order to be able to do that, is that
Right,
correct? Yeah,
right.
okay.
Right, and there, like for this 2914, for instance, we have to ask permission. That's still part of a permission deal
Okay.
of what we can expend it on. The Public Service Commission has got a 911 advisory committee that rules on that.
Okay, yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Not to change the subject, but I see a lot of the funds for broadband will be through the Public Service Commission, is that correct? That will be allocated to entities around the state? I thought I read something that.
Well, there was some, through this last session, there was a senator that was trying to change things as far as, is that what you're talking about, what was
Yeah.
distributed? Because some of the smaller PSAPs couldn't afford certain things.
Right.
But the next gen, we already adopted that funding model, So that's pretty much set in stone what's going on there.
It was like 84 million.
It could be. Could be. Okay, so, the next one up is 2915, that's, Gary. And, obviously we share him with Seward. Any questions?
It's been a very good arrangement over the years.
It's worked. This is the one, that 2940 obviously was our construction. Thankfully, there's zeros there. That is all taken care of.
Architectural fees. That was about the same with it. I mean, so, threw that in there.
2960. It's gone.
Wait,
Oh,
sorry.
am I going too fast?
That's the one that,
Is that the one that has the money in it?
yes,
Mhm,
yes.
mhm.
So, even though that fund was closed, apparently the system allowed for actual receipts to come in there. So there's just shy of $4,851 that will be transferred out of this fund back into the general fund. Those were highway safety grants through the sheriff's office that reimburse primarily payroll costs that come out of the general fund, so.
So somehow it got into that one. That will be part of our transfers this year. We'll have to transfer it out of there. Just a miscoding, obviously. Okay, 3,700.
Those are your bond payments. On the
No.
highway allocation bond, so.
Right, well, it's the 4601. This one has not.
These
this
are your
one-
bond payments, this is your debt
Oh, okay.
service fund for the highway allocation bond. The
There we go.
4601 is your actual
Right.
construction fund. So, yeah, so the expenses in 3,700 are really your principal and interest payments.
Which we have
Mm,
to.
mhm. So nothing on 705, but 900 is where
Correct.
those, yeah.
Yeah, the reason that that 705 shows up is the prior way
Yeah.
that it was used prior, yes.
Okay, 4601 is like I say, the actual projects themselves. Which were.
And that's what we've got left in the
Yes.
bond? Okay.
And 5,400 is nothing. And this is the ambulance with the city and city of York, I should say.
And that number that we have there, Randy, is the actual, correct?
Right.
That was agreed on, okay.
Yes, should be in the agreement.
And we did that all get, I know we brought in that cash reserve to help with the timing, but did the full year of payments get made for the 21-22 year?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, I haven't gotten to that fund yet on the
Yes.
actual
Okay.
money on it, so, okay. Just wanted to, because sometimes we've had to add to,
I think the last time we had to do something different is because we did not put in the correct amounts.
correct.
And then we asked them to hold off till the next
Right.
time. But other than that, I think it's going
Okay.
good now. Okay. And that's that it?
Mhm.
Okay. So there we are.
What do you have for cuts?
Currently, and this
I
is
did that.
very preliminary. What Jill's been working on, we're under our lid.
Okay.
We're within the realm that we can live. Now, The other piece of this is, you know, in the state's infinite wisdom, they felt like 3.5% wasn't a good enough check balance for us. They put in the LB 644. And that is 2% growth. 2% plus your growth. And for us this year, it was not quite a full percent, it was 0.93. So we got 2.93% growth that we could have. That figure, if we wanted to avoid that meeting, is roughly $600,000 that we would have to pull from inheritance to, you know, offset money. Now, you know, the nice part about that is, you know, we have a very robust inheritance. Even with that expenditure out of there, and the motor grader, and the other things we did, we're probably still gonna have $6 million right at it left in inheritance. And then, of course, as we look at our pennies, you know, that's a couple pennies that we would actually be not levying, taking away. You know, I mean, because if we're under our lid is 300 and some $1,000, which is, you know, roughly a penny that we would go up if we met our lid, but this would be, unless I'm seeing it wrong, going the other way, and we would actually be using a little bit of inheritance and, you know, taking away. So that is an option. Is the meeting a big deal? No, I don't think it's a big deal.
Right.
Is it ridiculous? Yes, I think it's ridiculous, because we already have, you know, something that we had to avoid and cut and do things like that. But, you know, I mean, that's up to this board. We do have the availability to spend it down, and we could avoid that meeting. And, like I say, utilize some of that money that's been collected on the inheritance side to give the taxpayers a little bit of a break. Comments?
And I think that's the point that you want to keep in your mind, is it's not just a matter of, we're gonna do this just so we don't have to participate in the
Right,
hearing.
exactly.
It's looking at it in terms of
We had a big,
providing some, you know, keeping your tax rate,
right,
and passing some relief on to your
Right.
taxpayers, if that's the way you decide to go.
I just don't think you're ever gonna, we could do that this year to avoid the cards doing the hearing, but then what about next year? And then the year after
Right.
that, yes, at some point it's gonna catch up, back up with this, and we're gonna have to comply with law.
right.
Or it's gonna go away.
Or it's an idea, I don't know about that, but, but I feel like with going through this budget, we've kind of eliminated most of our one-time, or like operational type of expenses, you know, like we're employees, where that's a continual expense. We've eliminated or found different funding mechanisms for like the one-time things, like the motor grader, some equipment. Or is there more in there we could still touch yet? I get a little nervous about funding operations out of inheritance fund, just because we've never done that before.
Right.
You know,
We haven't, and, you know, I agree that, you know, the part of that is too, and I think, Kurt, me and you have had this conversation, you know, whenever the inheritance tax gets attacked from the state level, it's kind of because of counties like us that are real conservative with it, and, you know, we let it grow, and it's a nice rainy day fund, but, you know, if we're not using it then too, then, you know, we kind of open ourselves up for that. Hey, what about that? You know, these guys are sitting on $7 million, you know, so, yeah, I get nervous about doing our budget that way, but, you know, if it gives us a little bit of a break, I mean, I see benefits too, I do.
We're, I guess if it goes back to, if we're not talking about avoiding the hearing meeting, it don't really matter. I was gonna ask, where did we fall now that we went through all of it? Are we still in that $600
Yeah,
range?
because the things that we did, other than the road
Yep,
fund,
yep,
really, those other funds do not impact your
sure.
general fund property tax asking.
Okay, yep, yep.
So, yeah.
What is our, do you have that calculation now? What the tax asking is currently versus last year?
Versus last year, yeah, I can do that. Now, again, I give this as a caveat to say, I'm trying to make adjustments from today on the fly.
Sure, right, yep.
So,
Yep.
you know, without going through and making sure that I didn't make an error, which is possible. So right now, between, the general fund is at 7.53 million. Let me pull last year. I'm slow today, I'm sorry. So last year's general fund was 6.668 million. The debt service fund is staying the same at 874,000, and ambulance has gone from, it was 330,000 last year, actually down to 320,000 this year. The thing that Randy and I have visited a little bit about that we haven't talked about yet is typically, and it's been as long as anyone can remember, your budget has included a $500,000 cash reserve in the general fund. Part of what's happening with this year's budget for going forward and dealing with some of those things is with the increase in cost that came through in part of the 21-22 year, your actual cash reserve was down quite a bit. And so we've had some discussions whether that $500,000 number is still, in today's climate, the right number. And so if it's not, then that would also, an increase in that number would need to be funded as well.
We got to, right before the last meeting, you know, our general was showing, and of course, we start collecting second half taxes mid-August, somewhere in there, and we get our allotment from all the loans that are outstanding, you know, and we started seeing, but we got down to about 19,000 in the general. I mean, 19,000 doesn't come close to meeting payroll, you know, payroll's like 160,000, you know, every 2 weeks, so I think we've done a good job of, over the last few years, you know, kind of trimming the budget up and making it a little bit more lean. We don't carry over, I mean, a couple of years ago, we carried over a couple $1 million or something, and we've done away with that. But like I say, we may have to do a little bit more in reserve, just so we don't have some of those nervous days before we start getting collections. Now the collections have come in and we're looking pretty good now.
Don't they recommend at least 3 months of operation? 3 to 5?
Typically.
I mean, that's at least 3.
And part of what you face is a timing issue when your main source of revenue, you know, doesn't come in a regular
Right.
format where you have those seasons. So, just in terms of actual cash, so for the year ended 6/30/21, your cash carry forward was 1.9 million. 6/30/22, you're at 1.35. And again, part of that is working better within the budget to trim those excess,
But we've always kind of treated inheritance fund also as a
Yes.
backup reserve.
as your cash reserve.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now we got hardware also,
For a little bit.
for a little bit.
So another question that I don't know if you have the calculations quite yet, preliminary what would be our levy, current versus last year?
This will not calculate it, but I can do it. It's not on it, but it doesn't calculate automatically.
I guess we could struggle around pretty good.
This will take me just a little bit.
When was the deadline to turn in for Central District? Was there a deadline?
That's today, I think I sent an email about that today, to register.
For registering, because I know there was a link to go to.
Hmm?
You can pay at the door too.
And,
Yeah, maybe online registration's closed today,
Yeah.
so.
you said you were going,
Is it in Kearney?
no, this is Aurora.
This is Aurora.
This
this
is
is
like the
from-
15th.
Like a half a day deal.
Yeah, and I mean, they got breakfast from 8 to 9, you don't necessarily have to do that.
And they feed you lunch.
And then disperse you.
They have an agenda out for that, you guys want to see that.
I didn't make the spring one, so I'm gonna try to make this one, we'll see. And we get to come back next week for a meeting again.
Yeah, right.
Pardon me?
When you say the budget hearing would be this,
We didn't.
can we get it in next, not
I
time?
don't think, yeah.
Not if
No.
you don't get that, you're asking under the 2.93%, then it has to be within the 17th through the 20th. So that would be the June.
I think
And
you,
if we did, we still
You meant
probably
like
wouldn't
the
wanna have
final-
it on Tuesday.
No, because you don't
Right.
have enough time for the publication.
yeah, we,
Okay.
so we've got normal meeting days for us are the 6th and the 20th. When did you say, what was that email? That was,
I was going to do it on the 21st.
Wednesday, the 21st,
But I
that
don't,
joint meeting.
yeah, that's gonna be tight because people have to, really, they should be giving me all their information by today. But since it's by the 5th, but since the holiday, I think we're gonna go to the 6th.
Right.
And then I have to get the stuff to the assessor's office by the 10th, which is a Saturday. And that, the postcard is their 7-day notice of the meeting. So it has to go to the state to get printed and then mailed out
So
by
that's,
the
that's,
14th to get to the 7-day notice of the 21st.
That, we talked about that at workshop this week, and that's,
So I don't know how that's gonna,
well, and just even the noted, there's no notice requirement that schools notify, like, the bond issue. There was that LD2 bill.
yeah, they,
That was where you value ag land at 50% for purposes of paying school bonds. There's no, nothing saying
Oh, I get it.
the superintendent has to tell anybody that they did that, so.
How do I do that?
um,
Look there, but you wanna get it.
so our budget hearing,
Full screen.
Oh,
all the other 20.
if that's where.
unless we have a special meeting.
Okay, well, I gotta open it back up.
It just didn't look happy. It's an option.
It's an option.
I'll let you know, she didn't start out happy today either, so. Even before you got here.
I was gonna say, do you have something to do with that?
No, I was
Okay.
the first, this room was the happiest it was when it was just me in here, so.
Got a lot on my plate right
Bring
now.
my iPad.
What do we have 5 days? 5 day to notice
Publish it.
for
Yes.
budget hearing,
Yes.
5 days. I guess I could really make her smile and say we're gonna do it at night.
Yay.
Do we need to do a special meeting for our budget hearing?
That's what we're.
Yeah,
Well,
that's-
I mean, I think
It'll-
some of
it'll-
it comes down to,
Yeah.
you, there's this idea of if you have to participate in the joint hearing, you can't truly participate for the reason behind the joint public hearing and have your hearing before. Does that make sense?
You could have a hearing but take no action on.
You could, but then you're having another meeting to have it. Do you see
And
what I'm
and I
saying?
agree with what you're saying, because that's what was throwing me off last time, is why don't we, can we just have like what we did here, and then that be our proposed budget for the public to come to the big group hearing, and then you have your hearing, so you're not publishing hearing notices all the time,
Correct.
which would increase the cost of the provisions
The
of LC
joint
644.
meeting
Would be
on the
the
21st.
21st, 22nd, somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
Could, like, just playing into, okay, we're having this is our proposed, then we say that that meeting is our hearing meeting. Could we take action at that meeting? I mean,
I
if we
think
had
so,
a
yeah.
quorum
I
of
think
our
so.
board,
Yes,
We
rather
could.
than just sending your, yes, I think so. We
Right.
would want to because it's also new.
Right,
We would
yep,
want to
yep.
verify all of that.
Yep.
but-
Like us approve our budget at that joint hearing with
That's-
everybody else?
Or just following.
I don't think, because that's, you're not that's not the,
If you would have to publish.
You'd have to publish.
we would have
it.
to publish that we were having a meeting
Yeah.
following that one,
Yes.
probably.
Right, because
Yes.
it couldn't be before it, because it has to be an
Correct.
open-ended.
Yes,
It has to be open.
you have to give the reasonable time.
oh,
to-
right, our hearing has
Yeah,
to be
like our,
open-ended.
yeah, it has to be open-ended, like, if somebody
Right.
wants to testify, we
Yeah.
cannot limit testifying, it has to be open.
Yeah, we can't schedule something at, hearing at 10,
Nothing
and
behind
something
it.
at 10:15.
Right.
You almost have to do it at 1:30 and then make Willard come back after lunch at 1:30 and then.
That's right.
Yes, so, and we have till the 30th to get our budget in.
To the state auditor's office, right?
So we do, I mean, we have been relieved of that at least, to where if we do have to
Right.
have a special meeting, we can have one after the meeting
Yep.
on a non-normal meeting day for us.
You just have to make sure that you allow time on our end to finish all of the filing and go through our review processes as well.
Which is,
5 minutes.
If there's no change, you gotta make.
True, yes. So, yeah, I mean, that's, it's not, if there's no change, that becomes much easier.
so it, you're still working for the
I'm
lid?
sorry, yes, I'm
The-
trying.
I caused her to have some extra
It's okay.
calculations
No,
to
you're
do.
fine,
Leave her
For a
alone,
levy,
yeah.
let the woman work.
did increase the valuation about, what, 27 million?
No, they was
It wasn't
150, what,
Huh?
valuations? Wasn't it like 150?
Maybe it was.
It was 3.3
Oh, 3 point.
billion and it went to 3.4
It's on here.
something.
It
Okay,
went up a little bit.
yeah, okay,
150 million, I think.
that could be. Yeah.
It chump change.
Because our growth, our, what they consider real growth was
Yeah.
29, almost 30 million dollars.
3.489 is the current.
That's current.
Yeah.
So last year was 3.3 something.
Value attributed to growth was 29. million.
Willard?
Well, I just wanted to make a general comment about, you know, I get cut and everything, but then there used to be a thing that where, like, you had authority to spend some, and if you didn't do it, then that kind of screwed up what you could do in coming years, because you couldn't go, something like that. And hopefully you guys are, I don't know if there's any of that kind of thing that's going on now, but hopefully you think about that, because in these uncertain times with fuel, just uncertain times, period, of course, I don't wanna spend money we don't have to, but yet if that screws you up down the road, because then you can't raise things because of something you did years before. That's the only thing I hope you consider, However, whatever's going on with any of that, I don't know, but.
Eventually, you're way behind the 8 ball.
No, I get that, but you don't wanna put yourself more behind that.
Right.
Cause then that hurts us.
That's the way it is at my place.
You're behind the 8 ball?
Yeah.
How much more time do you need,
No,
Jen?
I just clicked on that tab, I think
Oh, okay.
you're okay, so let me go back and pull last year.
Trying to figure out too.
So last year's, general fund levy, not including the bond fund. Sorry, this looks odd. Last year's was 1.1995, and this year we're looking at 0.215. That's what looks odd. The bond fund is not calculating correctly.
It's not too shabby.
That's gonna change that a little bit.
What does one penny make?
349,000.
349, oh, it's classic.
Okay, so 0.199551 last year, 0.225002 this year on the general. And then the bond levy goes down just a freckle, because we're requesting the same amount over the higher valuation, so. And right now, actually, 199. The 0.225 includes the ambulance, because we have to have the state unlock these forms to split that out because of the way that it's valued separately. So if I add in the ambulance to last year, so that they're comparable, last year was 0.214003 versus 0.225002. So you're at basically a penny.
It's not too bad.
Unless we wanted to do something else, and then we would essentially get rid of that penny and take a penny away. And then we don't have the meeting, and then we can just do our budget and pass our budget at the 20th, or have our budget hearing, pass our budget. The 20th would give you plenty of time to take care of that, and we'd be done. We still have to well, not we, but the clerk and the assessor still is part of this meeting. It's just that York County would not be part of that meeting.
We wouldn't have to go, if we're not on there, then we don't have.
You don't have to run the meeting at all?
No, whoever
Okay.
has to go to that meeting,
That's your
but.
designation.
We
they
have
just-
to-
They suggest someone goes, cause there's a report that has to be done, and that has to be sent to the subdivisions and the state auditor.
Okay,
So if the county's not part of that meeting, then they would have to get someone that is part of that meeting to do those reports. And get it to me and. so
okay.
we
We have to
That's the way I
organize the
understand.
meeting.
I have to organize the
And do the
meeting.
mailings.
Yeah, and do the mailings, but if we're not part of the meeting, we don't have to technically be there.
And the mailings is going to be the assessor sending in the information to the state print shop, who in turn is going to print the cards, put postage on the cards, and mail the cards. And so then we just need to reimburse the state print shop for, no, they're gonna bill NACO, and then we'll reimburse NACO for our portion of the cards and the postage.
And they say with the webinar that I watched yesterday, that the print shop should have those turned around in 24 to 48 hours. I mean, 93 counties, if 93 counties use that, I just.
Right.
There's 89 counties using it.
Oh, is it 80?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a lot of employees to have to stay and work nights.
Okay. There we are. There's our, I guess, we'll put something on the agenda for next week. I think to give us some guidance of what we wanna do. As this board, what they wanna do, and then we'll know more at that, because we don't have anything to act and discuss on at this one, just budget workshop, so.
Well, we have to let me know, at least by the 6th, if we're gonna be on that, because then I have to get it to the assessor's office to
Right.
be by the 10th,
Right.
so they can get so it's supposed to be today. Well, it's supposed to be the 5th, but they suggested to know today, but it can go to the 6th because the holiday's on the 5th.
Okay.
So that has to be
So if
done.
So we have a meeting
If we have a
Tuesday.
meeting Tuesday morning and talk about whether or not we're gonna pull some money out of inheritance, that will give you notice that day, whether or not we're gonna need to be in that meeting. Is that
Right.
fall into your?
Yeah, and then there's
timeline?
forms that has to be filled out if you go over the 2%.
Maybe we should just take that up first thing Tuesday morning, so there's the,
I mean, I have not looked at the agenda yet, I don't know.
There's only 3 things on there
We've
right
got a
as
couple.
of right now.
Okay,
That's not with the stuff we talked about yesterday.
right. So it shouldn't be overwhelmingly, big anyway. So we can just put on there, like I say, I haven't thought about it, but act and discuss on, LB 644, or I don't wanna say act and discuss on budget, because we're not
Right.
going to act and discuss on
Right.
budget. Act and discuss on funding budget or,
budget processes for fiscal
We'll
year
figure out
22,
something.
23. Jill's a smart lady, she can figure that out.
You, by then, can you come up with a firm number? That-
I'll put everything in.
Okay,
Does she-
It won't go through our review process by then, obviously, but Yeah.
you'll be pretty confident in the number you float our way, and then I can get that to everybody, and that way they can,
Does she need to be up here next Tuesday?
I don't think so. She's shaking her head. She, if I remember right,
you
there's,
don't wanna pay me for another trip. I'm trying to minimize your expenses.
There you go.
It's not in the budget.
And then.
Those cards for sure.
I remember you are busy.
Yes.
The
I am
next
not
2
next-
weeks.
Right,
yes,
yep,
yes.
that's right.
I am available, I mean, you can call
Right.
or email.
I understand.
I'm just on site at another
Okay,
client.
okay,
And then that should give us, we'll know then if we need to set our own meeting, or if we're joining that meeting, and it should give enough time for all that publication and everything, so I think that should work fine.
You
Yeah.
could, I mean, you could, on your agenda item, you can figure out, however you wanna word it.
We could
Part of
act-
it could be discuss and act on setting budget here.
Right, which we have to do.
Right.
Because if we decide not to fund, then we're gonna have to fit that piece of pie, how do we fit in there?
Right.
And if we decide to fund, then it would be just the 20th, and that would give us plenty of time for publication and everything. Okay, anything else? Everybody good with everything? Okay. I don't think there's anything on there, is there, other than adjourn?
Adjourn.
Let's do it.